A very good evening to all my dear students. I hope you all are fine and I hope that you are all are studying hard. And I also hope that the way I have told you that you need to go through the ICI module in entirety, including the examples and the illustrations after every session till where we cover in that session, you are doing the same. So I can see Kavya, Jash, Dhyanesh, Anish, Sankaran, Harshita, Ramachandra, Priyanka, Aman, Rohit, Jyoti have already joined. So students, I'll quickly start with the topic that is scheduled for today because we need to cover a number of important topics today. So we were doing chapter number 3, audit documentation and audit evidence, like, and in the last session, that is the second session for this chapter, we have discussed about audit procedures. What are the various types of audit procedures, whereby we discussed about what? Inspection, inquiry, external confirmation, analytical procedure, recalculation, pre-performance, right? That the auditor performs. And we also understood that the auditor may perform these procedures as risk assessment procedures or test of controls or as what? Substantive procedures. We also discussed in the last session about the risk assessment procedures. That is the audit procedures performed by the auditor to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, including the internal control, right? After identifying and assessing the risk in terms of SA 315, the auditor will respond to such risk under SA 330 by performing test of controls if he intends to rely on the controls, right? And substantive procedures. With respect to test of controls, we have discussed in the last session that these are the audit procedure to test the operating effectiveness of the controls, whether they are able to what? Prevent or detect and correct material misstatement at the assertion level. Okay? So I expect that till test of controls that we have covered in the last session is all. Everything is clear to you because I cannot see any query as such with respect to these topics. Now, today we will be starting with the discussion of what? Substantive procedures. Now, what are substantive procedures? So, as I've told you that test of controls or risk assessment procedure or substantive procedures, these are all what? Audit procedures only. The nomenclature will be different. It will change with respect to the context in which such audit procedures are performed, right? So here the audit procedures were performed to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement in terms of SA 315. Here the audit procedures were performed to test the operating effectiveness of internal control in preventing or detecting and correcting material misstatement at the assertion level, right? Now, what are substantive procedures? ठीक है, यहां पर ऑडिटर ने रिस्क को आइडेंटिफाई एंड एसेस कर लिया by obtaining understanding of what? Entity, environment and internal control. In order to respond to that risk, if auditor intends to rely on internal control, auditor will perform what? Test of control, right? Based on auditor's assessment of risk in terms of SA 315 and the effectiveness of internal control as he has tested in by performing test of control, auditor will then decide the nature, timing, extent of the substantive procedures. Now, what are substantive procedures? So, substantive procedures are the audit procedures. So, होते तो ये audit procedures ही हैं. Why? Designed to detect material misstatement at the assertion level. Students, we have not discussed the term assertion as such in detail. We will be discussing that after this topic. But as I've told you that assertion, try to understand that whatever information is given in the financial statement, the financial information that is present in the financial statement is what? Assertion, right? So auditor will now perform, he will now check the assertions that are there in the financial statement. Whatever assertions are there which are given by the management, the auditor will check all that assertions. How? By performing the audit procedures. So students, quickly tell me in a very simple language, whereby I've told you that audit procedures that are performed to check the financial statement information is what? Substantive procedure. Tell me, is it clear to all of you? Quickly send me your reply. Is it clear? So here auditor will, let's say, he will inspect, suppose the auditor is verifying the rent expense of the client. So he will perform various procedure whereby he can inspect the rent agreements. He can inspect with respect to what? The various rent payments that have been made by checking the bank statement, by checking the ledgers. So what he is doing? He is performing one of the audit procedure, which is what? Inspection. Now, if he come across any inconsistency or there is any doubt with respect to such rent payment, auditor may perform another audit procedure, which is what? Let's say inquiry. Auditor will inquire the management with respect to the doubts which comes to his mind with respect to what? Rent payment. So what is auditor doing? He's performing inspection, he's conducting inquiry, and what are all these? Audit procedure. Why? Because he want to detect whether there is any material misstatement at assertion level, that is in the rent expense that has been shown, whether there is any material misstatement. Clear? Now, this substantive procedures, this can further be of two types: test of details and substantive analytical procedures. Now we'll be discussing about what are test of details and what are substantive analytical procedures. तो देखो, इतना तो श्योर है कि जब ऑडिटर को risk assess हो जाता है, when he has identified and assessed the risk of material misstatement, and once he has conducted the test of control, auditor will surely perform substantive procedures. Because financial statement पे opinion देना है ना, तो financial statement को check तो करना ही पड़ेगा ना. Merely by just checking the internal control, auditor cannot give his opinion. Based on his assessment of risk, based on the results of test of control, auditor will decide what? The NTE of substantive procedures, nature, time, extent of substantive procedures, right? तो substantive procedures तो perform करना ही है. Now it depends upon the auditor's assessment and auditor's professional judgment as to whether he wants to perform test of details only or substantive analytical procedures only, or a combination of both. ठीक है? Now what are test of details? So just a minute. So what are test of details? See, in the financial statement now, there are various classes of transactions. There are various account balances and there are various disclosures. Okay? So classes of transaction, like there are sales transactions, there are purchases, there are other income, there are expenses, right? With respect to account balances, I will say there is, let's say, a balance of billing as on the last day of the financial statement, or creditors balance is there, debtor balance is there. Disclosures, let's say with respect to contingent liability, there is a disclosure. Now, what are all these? I told you कि अभी के लिए क्या समझो, ये सब क्या है? Assertion है. That is information present in the financial statement, right? Now, when the auditor is performing TOD, test of details, properly known as what? TOD, auditor is going to check whether there is any material misstatement in this sale, whether there is any material misstatement with these purchases, whether there is any material misstatement in income, or whether there is any material misstatement in the building balance, or whether there is any material misstatement in creditors balance or debtor balance, or any such disclosure. So what is he doing? He's performing audit procedures, right? Why? Because he want to see whether there is material misstatement at assertion level. So abhi we are not talking about financial statement as a whole. How when auditor will be able to be sure about all these assertions, then the auditor will be able to give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. But unless and until auditor performs audit procedure with respect to these assertion, that is why it is mentioned what assertion level, है ना? एकदम assertion level पे कि sales, with respect to sales, auditor will check each and everything. With respect to building, auditor will check each and everything. And once he's sure about each and every assertion that is present in the financial statement, then only auditor is in a position to give his opinion, right? So how does auditor do that? By performing test of detail. That is, he's going to check all these things in detail. He's going to test. And how? Again, by performing what? Audit procedures only, right? So when the auditor is testing the transactions, we call it as what? Vouching. And when the auditor is testing the balances, like building balance, creditors, debtors, so it is what? Verification. The transactions occur during the period and the balances are as on a particular day. So auditor will perform, when the auditor is performing test of details, TOD, is basically performing what? Vouching. He's basically performing what? Verification. And again, how? By performing audit procedures. Okay? So Dipanshu, assertion level, is it clear? And Anand, you also tell me assertion level. I have repeated it here, whether it is clear or not. Okay? So we have seen that substantive procedures तो करना ही है. अब टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल करना है या सब्सटैंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर करना है, इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन कि यहाँ पर क्या रिजल्ट था या यहाँ पर क्या रिजल्ट था, एंड ऑडिटर्स प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट. ठीक है, तो टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल इज क्लियर. नाउ व्हाट इज सब्सटैंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर? स्टूडेंट्स डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज, दिस इज व्हाट सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर्स. उसके दो पार्ट्स क्या है? टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स एंड सब्सटैंटिव analytical procedure, or only what? Analytical procedure, right? So the term analytical is very important here, right? And the auditor performs substantive analytical procedure in terms of standard SA 520, which we will be doing in detail in chapter number 8, right? But let us just try to understand for the purpose of this chapter as to what an auditor performs when he is performing what? Substantive analytical procedure. See students, apart from checking the transactions, the account balances, like apart from performing audit procedure at the assertion level in detail, auditor may also calculate certain ratios. He may perform certain ratio analysis. He may perform certain trend analysis, or he may perform certain comparisons. Like the auditor may compare, like for example, that say the salary expense of the client, there has been a 10% increase in the salary expense for the last 4 years. But now this year, there has been a 30% increase. So this is something unusual. So auditor will perform additional audit procedures in order to see what is the reason for this something unusual, right? So this is what auditor is performing, what? Trend analysis. Or auditor may compare the GP ratio of the client with the GP ratio of the other companies in the similar industry. So ratio analysis along with the comparisons, right? Auditor may compare the, let's say, the total expense of that of the company vis-a-vis the expense that have occurred in the last 4 years. Right? So what is this? Auditor is performing substantive analytical procedures, and as I've told you that in detail we will be doing SA 520 in chapter number 8 in detail. Okay? So what we have seen that यहाँ पर auditor assesses, identifies and assesses the risk of material misstatement. Here auditor tests the operating effectiveness of the internal control. Now what are substantive procedures? I have told you that when auditor performs the audit procedure in order to detect any material misstatement at resertion level, that is यहाँ पर अब चेकिंग ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट हैज स्टार्टेड, है ना. अब आप फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को कैसे चेक करोगे? यू विल चेक ईच एंड एवरी इंफॉर्मेशन ना. सो आई कैन से दैट एट assertion level auditor will conduct the checking. He may perform what? Test of details. That is, he's checking all the transactions, he's checking all the balances. Auditor may do it on a sample basis. Based on the assessment of risk, based on the results of this, auditor may perform it on a sample basis, applying his professional judgment. Also, auditor can perform what? Substantive analytical procedure. Now, whether to perform only test of details, whether to perform only substantive analytical procedure, or whether to perform a combination of both, it depends upon what? Again, it depends upon auditor. Based on his assessment of risk, based on the results of test of control, auditor will decide accordingly. Okay? Now tell me, can there be a situation whereby auditor is not at all performing substantive procedures? That auditor is not at all performing substantive procedure. Tell me. Students, you might hear some music out there because some celebrations are going out there, but I'm trying that sound should not interrupt our session, so bear with it. So tell me, can there be a situation whereby auditor is not performing substantive procedure at all, neither test of detail nor substantive analytical procedure, based on his assessment of risk of material? Like, I'll give a situation. Can it happen that here the risk of material misstatement assessed is very low? Internal control, he finds that these are very good. So can auditor skip the substantive procedures? Quickly tell me. देखो, before giving the answer, ना, just listen to this. यहाँ पर तो देखो कोई टेस्टिंग हुई नहीं है, यहाँ पर तो सिर्फ अंडरस्टैंडिंग मिला ना ऑडिटर को. रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट में देयर इज ओनली अंडरस्टैंडिंग, है ना. तो यहाँ पर तो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को टेस्ट किया ही नहीं गया, ओनली अंडरस्टैंडिंग. ठीक है, अबाउट एंटिटी, एनवायरमेंट एंड व्हाट, योर इंटरनल कंट्रोल. यहाँ पर इंटरनल कंट्रोल चेक किए. ऑन इंटरनल कंट्रोल एज सच ऑडिटर इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड टू गिव द ओपिनियन. ठीक है, auditor has to give the opinion on financial statement, जिसका checking कहाँ होता है? Substantive procedures में. Now tell me, can auditor skip substantive procedures? So those who have Jash and Kojima, please check your answer and the explanation that I have given you. Now send your answer again. यहाँ पर I told you understanding मिला है, यहाँ I told you टेस्टिंग हुआ है, बट किसका? सिर्फ इंटरनल कंट्रोल का. एंड यहाँ I told you दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट यहाँ आके एक्चुअली चेक होते हैं. ना बताओ, ये स्किप हो सकता है? ओपिनियन देना होता है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पे. सो द आंसर इज एब्सोल्युटली नो. ठीक है, इट कैन नॉट हैपन दैट इफ द असेस्ड रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट इज लो, द इंटरनल कंट्रोल आर वेरी गुड, ऑडिटर विल स्किप द सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर. नो, auditor will have to perform the substantive procedure because after all he is giving his opinion on the financial statement na. Whether to perform substantive analytical procedures only, that auditor decides that okay, risk of material misstatement is low, the internal control are very good, I'll perform certain ratio analysis, I'll perform certain trend analysis, certain comparisons, that is I perform only substantive analytical procedure. That can be done, but avoiding substantive procedure in entirety is not possible because opinion तो financial statement में देना है ना. तो IC देखो, there are certain inherent limitation of internal control also. इसको थोड़ा और डिटेल में पढ़ते हैं. Internal controls are good, but tell me, there can be inherent limitations of internal control also ना, because बनाता तो मैनेजमेंट ही है. तो मैनेजमेंट उनको ओवरराइड भी तो कर सकता है, उनको ब्रेक भी तो कर सकता है, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाई ऑडिटर विल हैव टू परफॉर्म व्हाट? सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर्स. ठीक है, so let us have a look at what is mentioned in your module. So audit procedures designed to detect material misstatement at the assertion level. Substantive procedures comprise of test of details of class of transactions like sales, purchases, your income, expenses, account balances, like your debtor, creditors, your balance sheet items, your liability side, and disclosure, like I gave you example of what? Contingent liability. Substantive analytical procedure, and what is the essay? Essay 520, और ये कहाँ पर डिटेल में पढ़ोगे आप? चैप्टर 8 में. बट अभी के लिए हमने क्या समझा कि इसके अंदर ऑडिटर विल परफॉर्म व्हाट? रेशियो एनालिसिस. ऑडिटर विल परफॉर्म ट्रेंड एनालिसिस. ऑडिटर विल परफॉर्म सर्टन कंपैरिजंस. ठीक है, right? So see, what is this pattern? It is basically talking about as to why substantive procedures are to be performed even if ICR could. Why substantive procedures required? So I told you, irrespective of the assessed risk of material misstatement, that means irrespective of whatever an auditor has, just a minute. Whatever auditor has assessed here, irrespective of the assessment of risk of material misstatement, the auditor shall, the word shall is there, shall design and perform substantive procedure for each material class of transaction, account balances and disclosure. Why? This requirement reflects the fact that, see, अभी हमने क्या बोला कि बेशक रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट कैसा भी हो, कितना ही कम हो, ठीक है. फर्दर टू ऐड ऑन दिस आई ऐड वन मोर पॉइंट, एंड बेशक टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल का रिजल्ट कैसा भी हो, ऑडिटर को सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर करने ही पड़ेंगे. ऐसा क्यों? क्योंकि जो यहां पर ऑडिटर का असेसमेंट है, दैट इज व्हाट? जजमेंटल इन नेचर, है ना. ऑडिटर इज असेसिंग ना द रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट, विच इज व्हाट? जजमेंटल इन नेचर, एंड ऑडिटर मे नॉट बी एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई ऑल रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट. देखो यहां पर ऐसे 315 में तो ऑडिटर इज ऑब्टेनिंग एन अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द एंटिटी एनवायरमेंट एंड इंटरनल कंट्रोल ना. सो वो जो असेसमेंट है, दैट इज व्हाट? जजमेंटल इन नेचर. That may vary from person to person, so it may not identify all risk of material misstatement. तो बेशक यहाँ पर आपका क्या आया? That risk of material misstatement is very less, but still, since such assessment is judgmental in nature, it might be possible that auditor is not able to identify all risk of material misstatement. And फिर हमने क्या बोला कि टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल बहुत इफेक्टिव है, फिर भी सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर करने हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज देयर आर इनहेरेंट लिमिटेशंस टू इंटरनल कंट्रोल इंक्लूडिंग मैनेजमेंट ओवरराइड. मैनेजमेंट ने ही तो इंप्लीमेंट किया ना इंटरनल कंट्रोल, मैनेजमेंट ने ही तो प्रिपेयर किया ना फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. तो इट माइट बी पॉसिबल ना दैट मैनेजमेंट में ओवरराइड सच इंटरनल कंट्रोल. समझ आता है? क्योंकि इस डायग्राम से समझोगे ना, आपको दोनों पॉइंट समझ आएंगे कि बेशक यहाँ सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा है, बट स्टिल since this is what? Judgmental in nature. बेशक यहाँ सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा है, just a minute, but this is what? Judgmental in nature. Same way, बेशक यहाँ सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा है, but कुछ inherent limitations होते हैं, तो auditor cannot skip substantive procedures. Is it clear? Just a minute. So Mr. Anand is saying that it should be a mandatory step during audit process, which is absolutely correct. Okay? So Josh is saying, ma'am, it cannot be skipped. Priyanka is saying auditor can't skip substantive procedure. Nagar Raju is saying no, madam. Mr. Ali is saying as the substantive procedure are the basis for the auditor's opinion. Dekho, absolutely correct. Whose answer is this? Mr. Ali, देखो अब यहाँ पर see when the auditor is performing test of details, just a minute, ठीक है. So after performing this test of detail, है ना, which is what? Substantive procedure with respect to sales, purchases, income, expenses, auditor will be able to draw different conclusions about various items of the financial statement. Based on all that conclusions, auditor will give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. Right? Clear? So Danesh and Jyoti is saying, ma'am, it is clear. Let me just have a look at one more query. Auditor must obtain understanding of, see, there is a query that, ma'am, can auditor skip this step that he, just a minute, that he does not perform any audit procedure under SA 315. See, students, auditor will have to obtain an understanding of the entity, environment, and internal control. तभी तो you will be able to conduct the audit in an effective and efficient manner. सी अगर आप किसी क्लाइंट का ऑडिट करने जा रहे हो, आपको उसका रिस्क तो असेस करना ही पड़ेगा ना, आपको उसके एंटिटी, एनवायरमेंट, इंटरनल कंट्रोल की अंडरस्टैंडिंग लेनी ही पड़ेगी ना. विदाउट दैट हाउ कैन यू कंडक्ट एन एफिशिएंट एंड इफेक्टिव ऑडिट, right? So is it clear, Mr. Ramchandra? Is it clear? Tell me. Okay. So this was about what? Your test of details. So let me just take you through the module. So depending upon the circumstances, the auditor may determine that performing only substantive analytical procedure will be sufficient to reduce audit risk to an acceptably low level, or only test of details are appropriate, or a combination of substantive, this is what, analytical, SA 520 wala, है ना, and test of details are more responsive to the assessed risk. Clear? Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. And students, also tell me, is this background music disturbing you? Are you able to hear that? Because it started all of a sudden. So tell me, is it clear about substantive procedures? These point number 3, 4, 5, 6, you can read as what? होमवर्क. बट हाँ, यहाँ पर एक 5th नंबर पॉइंट पे कॉन्सेंट्रेट करते हैं. बिकॉज द असेसमेंट ऑफ रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट टेक्स अकाउंट ऑफ इंटरनल कंट्रोल, द एक्सटेंट ऑफ सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर मे नीड टू बी इंक्रीज व्हेन द रिजल्ट्स ऑफ टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल्स आर अनसैटिस्फैक्टरी. It is saying that risk of material misstatement जब आप consider करते हो, if you remember, we have discussed that it consists of inherent risk and control risk. And control risk is what? Risk associated with internal control. ठीक है? So let's see, it says that the extent of substantive procedure may need to be increased when results of test of control are unsatisfactory. So let's say, just a minute. So here the auditor says that the risk of material misstatement is less. When he tested the internal control by checking the, by performing test of control, he found that internal control are actually not operating effectively. So what will he do? He will obviously increase his substantive procedure. He will increase his level of checking of the financial statements. Okay. Okay. Chalo. So that music is not coming. Chalo, that's good. Okay. So which point you want me to discuss? Jyoti, quickly tell me. I am not clear about the point that you want me to repeat. Okay. So please tell me. Okay. So students, tell me whether it is clear about substantive procedures. This topic, external confirmation as substantive procedure, I'll be discussing when we will do SA 505 in detail in this chapter. Point 2. Jyoti, please mention the page number now. 2. What is this point? So Jyoti has asked me, I think she's talking about this point. So it says that performing only substantive analytical procedure, that is ratio analysis, comparison, trend analysis, will be sufficient to reduce audit risk to an acceptably low level. This we have done in chapter number 1 now, that audit risk cannot be reduced to 0. Auditor obtains only reasonable assurance that audit risk can be only reduced to an acceptably low level. For example, where the auditor's assessment of risk is supported by audit evidence from test of control. What does that mean? It means that जब auditor ने test of control किए ना, he found that internal control are operating effectively throughout the period. He was satisfied with the internal control as implemented by the management. But we know that auditor cannot skip substantive procedure, so he may only perform what substantive analytical procedure in terms of SA 520. ठीक है, is it clear? Is it clear, Jyoti? Is it clear? ठीक है. So this was what substantive procedures. Now I told you this topic I'll be taking when we will do what SA 505. ठीक है. Now there are two small topics relating to substantive procedures related to financial statement closing process. That when the financial statements are being closed, they are being finalized, what substantive procedure auditor needs to perform with respect to such financial statement closing process, है ना? So देखो financial statement कहाँ से बनती है? If you remember, accounting records underlying the financial statement, है ना? तो underlying the financial statements का क्या मतलब है? Based on these accounting records only financial statements बनती हैं, like your general entries, your ledgers, है ना? तो when the financial statements are being finalized, auditor will first see that the financial statement tally with such underlying records. कि जो general entries है, जो ledgers है, all that books of entries, whatever book of accounts, whatever information is available, the financial statement should agree with the with such accounting records. Simple hai. Further, see, auditor will be performing all the procedures at the assertion level. कि sales को भी check करना है, income को भी check करना है. Auditor will be performing all that. But more specifically to financial statement closing process, what will auditor see? First of all, he'll see कि जो financial statements बने हैं, वो based on the ledgers, based on the assertions that he has checked. उसी के basis पे बने हैं ना. Secondly, he'll examine the material general entries and any other adjustment. है ना, कोई material general entries हैं या any other adjustment, auditor will consider that. And the nature and extent of such examination depends upon the nature complexity of financial reporting process and the related risk of material misstatement. See, if the transactions are very complex, if the risk of material misstatement is very high, obviously this is going to be a very detailed checking, right? So that is why the nature and extent depends upon the nature complexity of financial reporting process and the related risk of material misstatement. Simple है, but you can always get a 3-marker question. और अगर आपने नहीं पढ़ा है ना, तो you will write anything in this question, and you all know now that you will get marks for what you are going to write in the exam, है ना? तो एक बारी बहुत logically सोचो ना, financial statement closing process है, तो बाकी सब जो हमने assertion level पे काम किया है वो तो we are going to perform, but with respect to the financial statement closing process, पहले तो देख लो जो financial statement है वो based on underlying records है या नहीं, ठीक है? Then examine the material general entries and other adjustment, and ये सब किस पे depend करेगा? The nature and extent on the nature and complexity of financial reporting process and the related risk of material misstatement. Checking of 100% checking is not possible. 100% checking is not possible, Nagaraju. That is why there is a concept of audit sampling. Hana? So, Nagaraju is saying, ma'am, how can auditor check all the documents? There is a concept of audit sampling. Dekho, just try to understand. Audit sampling क्या है कि you are checking based on what sample basis. तो अगर risk of material misstatement कम है, internal control भी अच्छी है, so auditor may take a smaller sample, है ना, based on audit sampling, and where is the concepts relating to audit sampling given in SA 530. If let's say the risk of material misstatement is high, internal control are not good, auditor, he might not be able to perform what audit sampling. So he's going to do what detailed checking or taking a larger sample, checking material transaction, all transaction in details with respect to the material assertions. Clear, Nagaraju? Okay. And yes, he's saying then there is going to be a risk. Yes, there is always a sampling risk. Hana? But again, acceptable level tak, auditor will try to bring it to an acceptable level. right? So in chapter number 7, we will be discussing about this in essay 530. ठीक है, Mr. Nagaraju? Now, there is another concept relating to substantive procedure relevant to significant risk. अब significant risk क्या होता है? तो student, significant risk is defined in essay 315. It says that significant risk is an identified and assessed risk of material misstatement. मतलब क्या? It is a result of audit procedures performed in essay. Quickly tell me. Quickly tell me. अब ये essay number correct आना चाहिए. Identified and assessed risk of material misstatement. It is the outcome of audit procedure under what essay? बताओ quickly. So essay 315 ना, है ना? So an identified and assessed risk of material misstatement that in auditor's judgment requires special audit consideration, है ना? So Pranav, अरे वाह, number of you have answered it correctly. Pranav, Jyoti, Krishnan, Alok, Jash, Kanhaiya, Gomati, है ना? तो identified and assessed risk of material misstatement when auditor identifies and assess the risk under essay 315, है ना? And he identifies that there is a risk which requires special audit consideration, कि इसको ध्यान से चेक करने की जरूरत है. For example, auditors finds that there is some fraud risk factors that are available. They are examples. Or let's say there is some unusual transaction जो कभी हुई नहीं है, unusual transaction, है ना? So what are these? These are the transactions which are giving rise to what? Significant risk. Or let me just give you some other example also. Where a huge uncertainty is involved, or where any complex transactions is there. For example, when auditor was performing audit procedure under essay 315, he identified and assessed a risk that during the year there is the company has entered into merger and acquisition with another company. So this is a complex transaction. This is something unusual that has happened during the year now. So this requires auditor special audit consideration. So this poses what? Significant risk for the audit, right? So now the topic is that if there are certain significant risks that auditor has identified and assessed under essay 315, तो क्या करना है? ऑडिट छोड़ देना है? नहीं. ऑडिटर क्या करेगा? हमें पता है कि 315 में जो भी आइडेंटिफाइड एंड असेस्ड रिस्क होता है ना, उसको 330 में रिस्पॉन्ड करते हैं. ठीक है? सो सिंस दिस इज अ सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क, तो उसको कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करना है ये essay 330 में गिवन है. तो कैसे करना है? सो ऑडिटर टू परफॉर्म सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर्स, ये तो पता ही है, विच आर रिस्पॉन्सिव टू सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क. ऐसे प्रोसीजर्स करो विच आर रिस्पॉन्सिव टू सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क. अब सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क है ना? तो सिर्फ सब्सटैंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स करने से काम नहीं चलेंगे. रेशियो एनालिसिस, ट्रेंड एनालिसिस, कंपैरिजंस करने से काम थोड़ी ना चल जाएगा. नाउ ऑडिटर विल हैव टू परफॉर्म व्हाट? टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स. ऑडिटर विल हैव टू, देखो अगर कोई मर्जर एंड एक्विजिशन ड्यूरिंग द ईयर हुआ है, कोई कॉम्प्लेक्स ट्रांजैक्शन है, अब आप ट्रेंड एनालिसिस थोड़ी ना लगा दोगे वहां, बिकॉज ये तो अनयूजुअल नेचर है. लास्ट ईयर तो था ही नहीं. रेशियो एनालिसिस भी नहीं लगेगा, कंपैरिजन भी नहीं लगेगा. Right? So auditor will have to see if comparison or any other audit procedure like that is possible, then auditor may perform that. But auditor will have to perform what? Test of details. Test of details तो करना ही पड़ेगा. ठीक है? For example, an example is explained. It says that when the auditor is obtaining external confirmation, देखो external confirmation का क्या मतलब है? That let's say auditor is checking the debtor balances in detail. है ना. सो ऑडिटर इज परफॉर्मिंग व्हाट, टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल. अब टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल कैसे करते हैं, बड़े सारे ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स करके. वन ऑफ द ऑडिट प्रोसीजर इज व्हाट, एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन. सो व्हेन द ऑडिटर इज परफॉर्मिंग एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन एंड इट इज सम सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क, लेट्स से ऑडिटर फाइंड्स दैट इट इज पर्टेनिंग टू अ रिलेटेड पार्टी, है ना. तो ऑडिटर मे आस्क द third party to not only confirm the amount, that what is the amount of my client in your books, but auditor may also confirm the terms of sales agreement, any details like what is the date of the invoice, what are the delivery terms, है ना, and other inquiries. He may make inquiries of non-financial personnel also, है ना. So what is this topic saying? It is simply saying that अगर कोई significant risk है ना, तो since that risk is significant, respond to that risk by performing substantive procedure which are responsive, मतलब जिससे उस रिस्क को आप रिस्पॉन्ड कर सके. सिंपल है ना. हम 330 में रिस्पॉन्ड ही तो करते हैं ना. एंड व्हाट इज एग्जांपल कि अगर आपको बेसिकली इट मींस दैट ओनली परफॉर्मिंग सब्सटैंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर इज नॉट सफिशिएंट हियर. टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स तो करना ही पड़ेगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन में कर रहे हो, वो भी आप सिर्फ अमाउंट नहीं, आप टर्म्स, डिटेल्स एंड एवरीथिंग यू कैन कंफर्म फ्रॉम द थर्ड पार्टी. अब वो एवरीथिंग एंड एनीथिंग में क्या क्या आएगा, दैट आई विल टेक अप इन essay 505 व्हेन वी विल बी डूइंग दिस टॉपिक in the next session. ठीक है. So this is what the substantive procedures related to financial statement closing process. तो इसमें हमें क्या देखना है कि agreeing, reconciling the financial statement with underlying accounting records, examining the material entry and other adjustment, and this will depend upon the nature and complexity of entities financial reporting process and the related ROMM, risk of material statement. Substantive procedures responsive to significant risk. देखो इसमें कोई नई बात नहीं लिखी. ये पैराग्राफ क्या कहता है कि अगर कोई सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क है, नाउ क्या होता है सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क, आई टोल्ड यू दैट इट इज डिफाइंड इन essay 315 which says that any risk which calls for what, ऑडिटर स्पेशल कंसिडरेशन, कि ऑडिटर को स्पेशल कंसिडरेशन थोड़ा सा रुककर उस टॉपिक पर, उस assertion पर टाइम देना चाहिए, है ना, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट सिग्निफिकेंट. सो ऑडिटर नीड्स टू परफॉर्म द प्रोसीजर्स विच आर रिस्पॉन्सिव टू सच रिस्क. ऑब्वियसली रिस्पॉन्ड ही कर रहे हो. And it says, see, when the approach to the significant risk consists, no, just a minute, consist only of substantive procedure, those procedures shall include test of details. तो मतलब अगर आपको analytical procedures करने हैं आप करो, but test of details भी करने हैं. And how? There is an example of what, external confirmation which is given. ठीक है. So personnel means staff, employees of the client. Aman, whenever I am using personnel, personnel क्या है, मतलब the manpower. ठीक है. So are the two topics clear? Quickly send in your reply, students. Are the two topics clear? Now in the last session, there was a doubt of a number of students with respect to the homework that I have given you. Documentation of significant matter and related significant professional judgment. So quickly I'll devote 5 minutes to this topic and then we will start a very interesting and a very common query of all of yours, that is, what is assertion. ठीक है. तो अभी के लिए पहले let me just clear your doubt relating to audit documentation of significant matters and professional judgment. This was your homework and this was a doubt of number of students. देखो, if you remember, when we discussed about the form, content and extent of audit documentation, when we were doing, tell me essay what? Quickly tell me essay dash. Tell me. So just a minute. Here there is a doubt of Mr. Nagaraju who is saying, ma'am, can you please give me example of combination of test of details and substantive analytical procedure? Simple है ना. देखो, अगर let's say auditor is checking what, the rent expense of the client organization, है ना. तो he may perform test of details. That is, he is inspecting the rent agreement. He's inspecting the bank statements. He's calling for external confirmation from the landlord, the party. Okay? These are what test of details. He may also perform certain comparison. That is, what are the other companies in the similar area paying for the similar premises? So what is he doing? He is doing comparison. So what is this? This is substantive analytical procedure. Clear, Mr. Nagaraju? Is it clear? Okay. So where were we? We were discussing about this topic because there were a number of queries with respect to this topic. So this is essay 230. Okay. So when we were discussing about form, content, extent of audit documentation in terms of essay 230, we saw that the auditor should maintain the audit documentation in such a way so as to enable an experienced auditor having no previous connection with the audit to understand various things. And that various things included what? The significant matters and the professional judgment. है ना? तो पहले तो देखो documentation तो करना ही है. क्यों? Because later on, if there is any review work of that audit documentation, है ना? Chapter number 1 में पढ़ा था ना? Quality के लिए there will be what? Review. Monitoring of the audit of the quality control policies. So firm needs to establish policies and procedures where a periodic inspection of completed audit documentation होएगा. Anyone remembers that? तो जब वो review हो रहा है, that reviewer should be able to understand that when the audit was conducted, what significant matters came and what professional judgment was applied by the auditor. Also, in the subsequent year audit, next year के audit में, let's say the same team is conducting the audit, it will help them also कि last year भी इसमें problem था, this was a significant matter, है ना? And last year this was the professional judgment we applied. ठीक है, इतना समझ आता है why is we are studying this topic, why, है ना? Students, see, whenever we study any topic ना, तो पहले तो try to understand why we are studying this topic, है ना? अब देखो significant matter क्या होता है. So it says that judging significance, importance of a matter is an objective analysis by the auditor. Significant matters include the matters that give rise to significant risk. And we have seen in essay 315 that significant risk means that requires special audit consideration. अभी किया ना significant risk का definition, ठीक है? For example, अब significant matters कैसे हो सकते हैं? If there are results of the audit procedure which indicates that financial statement could be materially misstated. For example, when auditor obtains audit evidence, he obtains two audit evidence with respect to one assertion. कि debtor balance के लिए, let's say, he obtained two audit evidence and both are different. And that is a very material debtor balance. So the results of the audit procedure indicates that financial statement could be materially misstatement. अगर ऐसा कोई result है, तो this is what? Significant matter documented. If there is a need to revise the previous assessment and responses to risk, मतलब जो essay 315 का result है, essay 330 का result है, during the audit you need to revise such assessment or you need to revise the audit procedure that you planned earlier. भाई अगर आप रिवाइज कर रहे हो, दैट मीन्स देयर इज समथिंग सिग्निफिकेंट ना. आपने अपना ऑडिट प्रोसीजर जो आपने एसए 300 में द प्लान्ड एंट्री ऑफ ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स, रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोसीजर्स एंड फर्दर ऑडिट प्रोसीजर जो आपने प्लान किया था, नाउ यू आर रिवाइजिंग इट, दैट मीन्स समथिंग सीरियस इज देयर, तो यू नीड टू डॉक्यूमेंट इट. सेम वे, इफ देयर इज अ सिग्निफिकेंट डिफिकल्टी इन अप्लाइंग नेसेसरी ऑडिट प्रोसीजर, फॉर एग्जांपल टुडे वी विल बी डूइंग एसए 501. essay 501 बताता है कि एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ इन्वेंट्री अगर आपको चेक करना है तो आप ये सब ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स करो. ऑडिटर इज नॉट एबल टू परफॉर्म दैट, तो दिस इज समथिंग सिग्निफिकेंट ना, डॉक्यूमेंटेड. इफ देयर आर एनी फाइंडिंग्स ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ ऑडिट व्हिच रिजल्ट्स इन मॉडिफिकेशन टू द ओपिनियन, ऑडिटर ये बोल ही नहीं सकता दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट रिफ्लेक्ट अ ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू. ही कैन नॉट गिव दिस ओपिनियन बिकॉज ही हैज कम अक्रॉस अ फाइंडिंग. डॉक्यूमेंटेड, वो सिग्निफिकेंट होगा. है ना. सो अभी हमने क्या डिस्कस किया कि सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर के क्या एग्जांपल्स हैं. यू मे वेरी वेल गेट अ क्वेश्चन ऑफ 4 मार्क्स की क्या एग्जांपल्स है. तो सिंपल है, अगर रिजल्ट्स ऑफ ऑडिट प्रोसीजर से ये इंडिकेट होता है दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट कुड बी मटेरियली मिसस्टेटेड, तो डॉक्यूमेंट द रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट ऑडिट प्रोसीजर. नीड टू रिवाइज. अच्छा, नाउ यू विल से कि मैम ये तो डॉक्यूमेंट तो हम करते ही हैं. Students, you have seen there was a concept of audit documentation summary, completion memorandum. तो वहां पर यही सब तो आता था कि significant matters कौन से थे और आपने उनको कैसे एड्रेस किया, है ना. तो दिस इज बेसिकली एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ एन एक्सटेंडेड एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ दैट ओनली कि सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर अब क्या होते हैं, है ना. इफ देर इज अ नीड टू रिवाइज प्रीवियस असेसमेंट एंड रिस्पॉन्सेज टू रिस्क, डॉक्यूमेंट दैट. अगर आपको डिफिकल्टी आ रही है कोई ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स परफॉर्म करने में, डॉक्यूमेंट दैट. If there are findings that the results in modification to audit opinion, document that. Clear? Now, the form contained in audit extent of audit documentation of significant matter कि कितने हद तक किस फॉर्म में क्या कंटेंट होना चाहिए of significant matter. It depends upon the extent of professional judgment involved. It depends upon the extent of कितना प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट ऑडिटर का लगा. देखो, अगर ज्यादा प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट लगा है, ज्यादा वर्किंग आप कर रहे हो, तो ऑब्वियसली इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ मोर ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर. ठीक है. और ये डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, अगर इफ द ऑडिटर इज मेंटेनिंग अ डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ऑफ द प्रोफेशनल मैटर, दिस इज गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन द ऑडिटर्स कंक्लूजन कि ये सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर था, हमने इसको ऐसे एड्रेस किया. तो इफ यू आर maintaining a documentation, so it is going to explain the auditor's conclusion. Also, the quality of judgment will be reinforced. That is, the quality of judgment will be increased, strengthened. जब आप कुछ writing में आप सब कुछ note down कर रहे हो, obviously the quality of judgment is going to be increased. All these audit documentation of the significant matter of the professional judgment helps in reviewing the audit documentation. Subsequent audit may it helps in reviewing matters of continuing significance. Example, retrospective review of accounting estimates. For example, there has been certain retrospective like change from last 4 years. Retrospective is kya? It is from the last 4 years, there has some change has been made in accounting estimate, right? Now, last year you applied professional judgment, last year also you applied professional judgment. Documented hai na ye sab. This is going to help you in the next year audit or this year audit. Clear hai? So for all those who were sending in their queries with respect to these topics in the last session, tell me whether your query is clear. वेरी सिंपल. यहां पर क्या बताया कि सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर क्या होता है जो सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क को अराइज करे. सिग्निफिकेंट रिस्क क्या होता है विच रिक्वायर स्पेशल ऑडिट कंसिडरेशन. एग्जांपल्स क्या है, ये एग्जांपल्स है. अब सिग्निफिकेंट मैटर की फॉर्म, कंटेंट एंड एक्सटेंट ऑफ ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन डिपेंड्स अपॉन द एक्सटेंट ऑफ व्हाट, प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट. आप डॉक्यूमेंट करोगे तो उससे क्या होगा, दिस इज गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन द ऑडिटर्स कंक्लूजन एंड इट इज ऑब्वियसली गोइंग टू एनहांस द क्वालिटी ऑफ द जजमेंट. Further, it helps in reviewing and helps in subsequent audit with respect to reviewing the matters of continuing significance, जो next year भी important है. Is it clear, students? So, apart from this, I have given you homework with respect to topics of relevance, reliability, types of audit evidence, which I have discussed quite in detail. वो बस I haven't taken you through the module, so I hope that is clear. है ना? ये doubt था which I have taken up. Now, a very important topic, which is what? Assertions. Tell me, without looking at the screen or the book, what do you understand by the term assertion? Assertion. Tell me, assertion क्या होता है? हम बार बार बात करते हैं assertion लेवल पे चेक करना है. क्या होता है assertion? अब देखो, देखो, let's say there is one company A Limited, है ना? It is having plant and machinery, and let's say at rupees 5 crore. ठीक है? Sales during the year were there, let's say for rupees, let's say 1 CR. ठीक है? Now tell me, if the management of A Limited wants to tell the users of the financial statements of the company, if the management wants to give this information that see the company is having a plant and machinery and the value as on 31st March is what? 5 CR, the historical value. During the year, the sales that occurred were rupees 1 CR. What is the option available? Will the management of A Limited get it printed in the newspaper? Or will the management pick up the mic and start announcing that, listen, we have the A Limited is having plant and machinery sales? No, nothing will happen. But what is the option available? The management of A Limited will prepare the financial statements and mention all such information, all such financial information in the financial statements, and such financial statements will be used by the users of the financial statement. But as you know that since a number of stakeholders are involved, so that is why there is a concept of what? Audit. So once an auditor audits, examines the financial statement, they become what? Audited financial statement. And such financial statements are used by the users of the financial statement. Okay? Students, this explanation is going to make you understand, going to help you in understanding the definition of term assertion and will also help you in learning it. है ना? तो मैनेजमेंट ने क्या किया? मैनेजमेंट ने जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन देनी थी रिगार्डिंग ए लिमिटेड वो कहां पर दी? फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में, और उसी इंफॉर्मेशन को हमने क्या किया? ऑडिट किया, एंड वो ही ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट यूजर ने यूज की. ठीक है? नाउ लेट्स से when the management of A Limited has mentioned in the balance sheet plant and machinery at a value of 5 CR. अब देखो यहां पर अगर if I ask you what all are you going to assume as a user of the financial statement, you are going to assume that if management has shown this as on 31st March 2022 in the balance sheet, that is a plant and machinery at the value of 5 CR, you are going to assume as a user that such plant and machinery exist as on this date. If you remember, when we did the difference between term audit and investigation, there was a difference that investigation always starts with a preconceived notion of something wrong has been done, but this is not the case with audit. तो ऑडिट में आपका कोई प्रीकंसीव्ड नोशन नहीं होता कि फ्रॉड ही है मैनेजमेंट, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है ना. तो ऑडिट में तो आप सब कुछ सीधा सीधा अज्यूम करके चलोगे ना कि अगर मैनेजमेंट ने प्लांट एंड मशीनरी 5 CR की दिखाई है बैलेंस शीट में, तो यू और द अदर यूजर्स आर गोइंग टू अज्यूम कि ये सच में एग्जिस्ट करती है. इसका वैल्यू आफ्टर द कंसिडरेशन ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन इज व्हाट? 5 CR. अगर मैनेजमेंट ने ये बैलेंस शीट में एसेट्स में दिखाई है तो ये मैनेजमेंट जो क्लाइंट जो है इसको देयर इज ओनरशिप ऑन दैट प्लांट एंड मशीनरी. द वैल्यूएशन इज करेक्ट एंड all plant and machinery that needs to be mentioned has been disclosed, has been presented in the financial statement. ऐसा तो कोई भी assume नहीं करोगे ना कि ऐसा ना हो कि 5 crores तो है 1 crore और भी हो, ऐसा तो नहीं assume करोगे ना, because we have seen that ये तो investigation में होता है ना, that something wrong has been done, ऐसा preconceived notion लेके चलते हो. ऑडिट में तो यू आर गोइंग टू अज्यूम कि अगर प्लांट एंड मशीनरी आ रहा है तो इसका क्या मतलब है, ये एग्जिस्ट कर रही है, ओनरशिप है क्लाइंट की, ऑल प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है, वैल्यूएशन करेक्ट है, प्रेजेंटेशन डिस्क्लोजर करेक्ट है. ठीक है. सो व्हाट इज ऑल दीज थिंग्स? देखो यही सारी इंफॉर्मेशन तो मैनेजमेंट ने दिया ना फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को लिखकर, यही सब हमने अज्यूम किया. but assume तो कर लिया. Now auditor will check all these things only. After getting assurance with respect to all these information, auditor is going to put his signature on the financial statements and the audit report. And the users of the financial statement are then going to use that audited financial statement. Hana? So what are assertions? Assertions are the representations, or what the other term is what? Declaration. Hana? If you look at the dictionary meaning of term assertion, it means action of stating something strongly. डिक्लेयर करना, कुछ रिप्रेजेंट करना. तो आई टोल्ड यू कि मैनेजमेंट माइक उठा के अनाउंस करने थोड़ी ना लग जाएगा, या न्यूज़पेपर में थोड़ी ना इसको प्रिंट करवा देगा. मैनेजमेंट क्या करेगा? उसको फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के फॉर्म में प्रेजेंट करेगा, प्रिपेयर करेगा. सो दीज आर द, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस डेफिनेशन वर्ड बाय वर्ड, लाइन बाय लाइन. So these are the representations by management, explicit or otherwise. What is meant by the term explicit? Clearly mentioned, expressed. Or otherwise is what? Opposite of explicit, which is what? Implicit, implied. Now tell me, ये जो यहाँ पर हम assume कर रहे थे कि exist करती है, ownership है, all building has been included, valuation correct है, तो ऐसे these things are what? Implied ना. These things are what? Implied, है ना? So representations by management explicitly mentioned or otherwise implicit, right? That are embodied in the financial statement. Tell me, what is the meaning of term embodied? So I'll tell you. The meaning is what? Included, contained in the financial statement. है ना? So is this part clear? अभी तक we have discussed these three lines, that these are the representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. है ना? तो if you remember, we were saying that we will detect the material misstatement at the assertion level. तो अब समझते हैं, जब हमने बोला था कि टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स में चेकिंग करेंगे एट assertion लेवल, तो अब जब सेल्स को ऑडिटर इज गोइंग टू चेक ना, सो व्हाट विल सी, जब सेल्स का अमाउंट 1 CR आया है, इसका क्या मतलब है? मैनेजमेंट क्या बोलना चाह रहा है कि ये जो सेल्स है ना, ये एक्चुअली अकर हुई है ड्यूरिंग द, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैंने वैसे लिख दिया. इनका जो मेजरमेंट है ना, वो प्रॉपर है. ठीक है? ये करंट ईयर को ही बिलोंग करती है, नेक्स्ट ईयर की नहीं आ रही है. इनका जो क्लासिफिकेशन है ना, वो प्रॉपर है. यही सब तो हम एज्यूम करेंगे. एंड ऑडिटर इज गोइंग टू चेक each and every assertion with respect to the items appearing in the financial statement. Auditor sales का सिर्फ एक ही चीज थोड़ी ना चेक करेगा, that whether proper amount पे आ रहा है नहीं. Auditor is going to check whether it pertains to current year, whether the classification is proper, whether they have actually occurred during the year, whether it pertains to the entity. है ना? So auditor is going to check each and every assertion relating to the item presented in the financial statement. और वो कौन present करता है? Management. या तो these can be expressly mentioned or otherwise that is implied, that are embodied in the financial statement. So I hope the first part is clear of this definition. ठीक है? So representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement. है ना? अब मैनेजमेंट ने तो बता दिया कि सेल्स जो है ना 1 CR की है, ये एक्चुअल में अक्कर हुई थी. ये इम्प्लाइड है ना, मैनेजमेंट ये कहना चाह रहा है. इनका क्लासिफिकेशन करेक्ट है, ये करेक्ट मेजरमेंट है, इनका करंट पीरियड से ही बिलोंग करता है. ठीक है? एज यूज्ड बाय द ऑडिटर. अब ऑडिटर भी तो इन्हीं assertions को यूज करेगा ना व्हेन ही इज performing the audit procedure to detect the material misstatement. So as used by the auditor to consider different types of potential misstatement. What is potential? Likely, probable. अभी तो चेकिंग कर रहे हैं ना, चांसेस है कि मिसस्टेटमेंट हो. मिसस्टेटमेंट कंफर्म तो नहीं हुई है ना, दैट मे अकर, है ना, एज यूज बाय द ऑडिटर। देखो जो इंफॉर्मेशन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में आई है, ये फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स हैं, इन्हीं इंफॉर्मेशन को तो ऑडिटर इज गोइंग टू चेक। इफ यू रिमेंबर आई टोल्ड यू दैट अनलेस एंड अंटिल ऑडिटर इज श्योर अबाउट ईच एंड एवरी assertion present in the financial statement, he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole, है ना। So auditor is going to use such assertions only. Why? To consider different types of potential, हो सकता है, likely misstatements that may occur, that shall नहीं है, that may, because audit अभी आप करोगे ना, है ना, तो assertions का, so basically this definition of assertion is divided into two parts. पहला वाला part क्या है, relationship of assertion and management, and second part क्या है, relationship of auditor and assertion. So these are the representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statements, ठीक है, as used by the auditor to consider different type of potential misstatement that may occur, है ना। So let us try to understand this again with the help of another example. Just a minute. देखो आज ये सब कुछ कवर करना है ना। तो देखो, अगर प्लांट एंड मशीनरी 5 CR वैल्यू पे आ रही है बैलेंस शीट में, है ना, तो मैनेजमेंट बेसिकली क्या कन्वे कर रहा है, या यूजर्स या ऑडिटर क्या अज्यूम करेंगे कि जो प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है ना एक्चुअल में एग्जिस्ट करती है। ये जो प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है ना, इसके ऊपर राइट है, ओनरशिप है ए लिमिटेड का। जो प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है ना, दिस इज कंप्लीट प्लांट एंड मशीनरी, जो दिखाना चाहिए था फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में, एंड द वैल्यूएशन इज करेक्ट। So these are the messages that this plant and machinery figure is giving or this balance sheet is giving to the users of the financial statement. So auditor is also going to assume that. तो particular item of financial statement के लिए various assertions, representations are given by management. Now, when I as an auditor, I'm checking the financial statement, I will have to check each and every item, then only I can give an opinion on the financial statement as a whole. So I'm going to check with respect to existence assertion कि सच में ये exist करती है, तो कैसे I can perform inspection. I may conduct physical examination of the plant and machinery, कि मैं जाके देख लूंगी ना कि सच में exist करती भी है या वैसे ही लिख दिया है, right? So I will inspect the documents relating to that building, purchase invoice, plant and machinery. I'll inspect the purchase invoices कि कंपनी के नेम पे है ना, complete है ना। So with respect to completeness, I can always obtain a written representations from the management. कि management बताओ जो भी information है वो complete है ना, plus yes, I can always perform other procedures, like I can go through the depreciation schedule, ledgers देख सकते हो आप, है ना। Then valuation, again depreciation schedule में recalculation कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। So see what all I am doing, I am performing the audit procedures. This is recalculation, है ना। And what are all these? These are nothing but test of details, है ना। तो I'm checking each and every assertion which has been given by management, represented by management, in order to detect any potential misstatement, likely. अभी चेक कर रही हूँ तो देखते हैं ना है या नहीं, likely potential misstatement that may occur. The term may is very very important, that may occur. समझ आया? तो that is why we say that unless, so इसी को बोलते हैं assertion level पे चेक करना। Financial statement as a whole, whether the financial statement as a whole give a true and fair view, उसके लिए auditor needs to check he needs to detect the material misstatement at the assertion level. एक item that is appearing in the financial statement, with respect to all that, the auditor is going to check all the assertions. ऐसी building के लिए all the assertions, ऐसी balance sheet item और liabilities के लिए, creditors के लिए, है ना, ऐसे ही income expenses के लिए, and with respect to disclosures है contingent liability का, whether it has been appropriately shown. Provision to nahi banana tha. Whatever has been mentioned, whether that has been appropriately mentioned. Okay? So let's say with respect, acha, sales, so we have discussed, right? So let's say with respect to any expense, है ना? Auditor will see कि revenue, it should not be a capital kind of expenditure. It should be a revenue nature expenditure. It should be an expense which has been incurred for the official purpose, not for any personal purpose of the MD of the company. So auditor is going to check each and every assertion that is appearing in the financial statement. It may be explicit or implied, which are embodied in the financial statement. Hana? Why? Because he need to detect whether there are potential misstatement that may occur in such assertions. Clear? So let me just take you to the definition from the module. Ab assertion samajh aaya? Because a number of you were sending me the queries कि ma'am assertion क्या है, assertion level क्या है. तो assertion की definition अगर आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाती है, you are able to understand what is meant by assertion level. So see, in obtaining audit evidence from substantive procedures, the auditor is concerned with the following assertions. So these are the representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied, included in the financial statement, as used by the auditor to consider different type of potential misstatement that may occur. Okay? So, in representing the financial statement, in representing that the financial statement are in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework, the management implicitly or expressly, or what is mentioned? Explicitly makes assertion regarding recognition, measurement, presentation, disclosure of the various elements and related disclosure. Assertions used by the auditor to consider different types of potential misstatement that may occur fall into the following three categories. Now, such assertions have been divided into three categories depending upon the nature. For example, with respect to classes of transactions and events like your sales, your purchases, basically your income expense item, the transactions or events that have happened during the year. With respect to the account balances that are appearing in the balance sheet, like your building, your creditors, Hana? The presentation and disclosure. So when the auditor is checking, let's say, let us just look at all these assertions. Let's say with respect to sales. So assertion about classes of transaction or events for the period. So income and expenses spread for the period now. So it means that the management is declaring that if, let's say, sales of 1 CR are disclosed in the P&L, that the transactions and events that have been recorded have occurred and pertain to the entity. Hana? That such sales of 1 CR have actually occurred and they pertain to the entity. Completeness. All transaction and event that should have been recorded have been recorded. Management ye bolna cha rahi hai. Accuracy. Amounts and other data related to recorded transaction events have been recorded appropriately. Hana? Cutoff. Cutoff is what? Transaction and events have been recorded in the correct accounting period. Hana? So only the sales up to 31st March has been included in the P&L. Right? So cut it at the end of the year. Cut off only the transactions related to the correct accounting period have been included. If any advance rent has been received, any income is there in the form of rent income for 13 months, that then only the rent income of 12 months have been considered in the P&L. 1 month income has been shown as what? The rent received in advance, right? So cut off, that is relating to the correct period. Classification. Transactions and events have been recorded in the proper account. No indirect income has been shown in the sales. So this is mean by assertion. So agar, if the management is showing sales at 1 CR and other income let's say at 10 lakhs. तो मैनेजमेंट ये लिख थोड़ी ना रहा है कि देखो ये जो अदर इनकम है ना इसमें कोई सेल्स नहीं है, या जो कोई सेल्स है ना इसमें कोई अदर इनकम नहीं है. दीज आर व्हाट इम्प्लाइड assertions, है ना. सो अकरेंस, कंप्लीटनेस, एक्यूरेसी, कट ऑफ एंड क्लासिफिकेशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द क्लासेस ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन और इवेंट्स. ठीक है. assertion about account balances at the period end में बैलेंस शीट में जब as on a particular date the balance of let's say the building is 10 CR, so the management is asserting that this building actually exists as on 31st March, this liability actually exists, this equity actually exists. Right and obligation. Right with respect to assets, obligation with respect to liabilities. The entity holds or control the right over assets, and liabilities are the obligation. Completeness. All assets, liabilities, equity, interest that should have been recorded have been recorded. Valuation is correct with respect, appropriate amounts पे आ रहे हैं, appropriate recording हुआ है. ठीक है. Same way with respect to the presentation and disclosure. So the disclosed events, transaction, other matters have occurred and pertain to the entity. All disclosure that should have been included in financial statement have been included. The financial statement is appropriately disclosed, described, disclosures are clearly expressed. Financial and other information are disclosed fairly and an appropriate amount. है ना? So the auditor may use the assertions as described above or may express them differently provided all aspects described above have been covered. ठीक है. So auditor is going to use all these assertions only. देखो कितना easy हो जाता है ना. Just try to understand. If you are conducting, you are in the audit team of A Limited, right? And if I ask you that go and conduct the audit of building that is appearing in balance sheet of A Limited, vis-a-vis, this is case 1. ठीक है. Vis-a-vis, I ask you with respect to case 2 that go and check the ownership assertion of building. Ownership and assertion with respect to building. अब देखो क्विकली आपके माइंड में आया ना कि टाइटल डीड चेक कर लेते हैं. If I ask you to go and check the existence assertion of building, quickly आपके माइंड में आएगा ना फिजिकल एग्जामिनेशन कर लेते हैं, इंस्पेक्शन कर लेते हैं. If I ask you go and check the valuation, quickly आपके माइंड में आएगा ना कि डेप्रिसिएशन शेड्यूल को recalculate कर लेते हैं. So if you are clear about the concepts of assertion now, this is going to help you in conducting the audit practically. है ना. So समझ आया, हमने बहुत टाइम डिवोट किया है assertions पे. ठीक है. For example, let us have a look at this example given in your module that plant and machinery 2 lakhs है, depreciation till the end 70,000, depreciation for the year, like this is accumulated depreciation for the year 13,000 and the balance is 1,17,000. So the assertions are the firm owns the plant and machinery. So this is implied now. The historical cost is 2 lakhs. This is implied. The plant and machinery physically exists. This is implied. हाँ ये चेक करना पड़ेगा. कैसे? यहाँ पर इनवॉइसेस देख लेंगे हम, यहाँ पर जो भी डेप्रिसिएशन शेड्यूल है वो देख लेंगे, यहाँ पर इंस्पेक्शन कर लेंगे, फिजिकल एग्जामिनेशन. द एसेट इज बीन यूटिलाइज्ड इन द बिजनेस ऑफ द कंपनी प्रोडक्टिवली. टोटल चार्ज ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन ऑफ दिस एसेट इज 83,000 टू डेट, टू विच 13,000 रिलेट्स टू द ईयर in respect of the accounts like to the current year. The amount of depreciation has been calculated on recognized basis. है ना. तो auditor will check all these assertions only by performing the various audit procedures that we have discussed. ठीक है. Now with respect to ये examples, I'll give you these examples at home. Now tell me, when building is mentioned at 1 CR, फर्नीचर एंड फिटिंग्स कुछ भी मेंशन नहीं है ही नहीं बैलेंस शीट में. तो दिस इज व्हाट इट इंप्लाइज दैट देयर इज नो फर्नीचर एंड फिटिंग. ये थोड़ी ना इंप्लाई कर रहा है कि फर्नीचर फिटिंग है पर मैनेजमेंट ने शो नहीं किया, ऐसा तो नहीं है ना. सो दिस इज व्हाट implied negative assertion. If furniture and fittings is not mentioned, so this is what implied negative assertion. ठीक है? When management clearly discloses in the notes to accounts that there is no contingent liability, तो ये भी तो negative assertion है ना, but अब ये क्या है? Expressed negative assertion. तो कोई भी assertion हो, negative, positive, implied, expressed, auditor has to check all the assertions. Then only the auditor can give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. तो negative assertion और ये implied assertion, यहाँ पर आप इसको पढ़ना बहुत अच्छे से समझ आएगा. Now, this paragraph is the summary of the concept of assertion. जिसको जो भी अभी भी कुछ clarity नहीं है, अभी ये पढ़ते हैं. It is going to be very much clear to all of you. देखो क्या लिखा है. Every financial statement contains overall presentation in addition to the specific assertions so far discussed. Right? So every financial statement contains overall representation in addition to the specific assertions so far discussed. Just a minute. ठीक है? Each financial statement purports, like the purpose is to present something as a whole in addition to component details. For example, the income statement purports to present result of operations. Balance sheet presents what? Financial position. The auditor's opinion is typically directed to the overall representation. See, when you will see na in the auditor's report na kaise aata hai, we give our opinion on the balance sheet as on a particular date and P&L for the year. है ना? ऐसा नहीं आता कि we give our opinion for sales, for purchases, नहीं. Overall representation पे opinion आता है, ठीक है? But to formulate and offer an opinion on the overall truth of these statements, P&L and balance sheet, auditor has first to inquire into the truth of many specific assertions expressed and implied, positive and negative, that makes up each of these statements. Out of his individual judgments of these specific assertion, he arrives at a judgment on the financial statement as a whole. देखो अब समझ आया? At the assertion level checking करेंगे by conducting substantive procedures, be it test of detail, be it substantive analytical procedure, or a combination of both. Once the auditor draws conclusions with respect to each and every assertion, he is in a position to give an opinion on the financial statement as a whole. Assertion कौन करता है? These are the representation by the management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement, as are used by the auditor. Why? To detect different types of potential misstatements that may occur. To consider different types of potential misstatements that may occur. Anna, tell me, is the concept of assertion clear to all of you? Let me just have a look at your queries. See, Aman is saying, ma'am, that if depreciation amount is, let's say, wrongly calculated, ठीक है, so what will auditor do? Auditor will perform additional procedures. Auditor will discuss that thing with the management. If management agrees to change that, then it is fine. Management will change that in the financial statement. Otherwise, auditor, if he consider it as material, auditor will consider its effect on the audit report. ठीक है, अमन? So Dipanshu, this is a very specific case. Na? Abhi hum ek general idea le rahe hain na. So if no, see, let me just take you to that also. Students, we are doing this paragraph. Negative assertion are also encountered in the financial statement, and these may be expressed or implied. For example, if it is stated that there is no contingent liability, तो express कर दिया ना कि नहीं है contingent liability, तो express negative assertion. On the other hand, if in the balance sheet there is no item of building, it is what? A एक्सप्रेस तो किया नहीं है, तो implied negative assertion that the entity did not own any building on the balance sheet date. And whose doubt was it? Dipanshu, with respect to your query, ना, it must have been mentioned in the disclosures या कुछ notes to accounts में कुछ तो mention किया होगा ना. तो auditor is going to study the financial statement as a whole ना. Occurrence का क्या मतलब है? देखो occurrence in existence. Just have a look at these. These are almost the same. अब sales को तो I can say that sales or purchases occurred during the year. I cannot say that building occurred as on this. Building के लिए तो existence ही बोलेंगे ना कि ये exist करती है. Plant and machinery exist करती है. Sales को थोड़ी ना बोलेंगे exist करती है. Sales को क्या बोलेंगे? Occurred during the year. So change of name only. So like basically the purpose is same कि whether the sales have occurred during the year. And building के लिए या account balance के लिए क्या बोलेंगे? That as on a particular date it exists. ठीक है? पूजा, is it clear? ठीक है? So students, tell me whether you are able to understand the concept of assertion, and I'm sure that अगर अभी भी कोई डाउट है, वैसे तो we have discussed each and everything in detail. You should in fact go through this concept of assertion in entirety, including the various examples that are given in your module. And there are on page number 3.33, there are some 8 points relating to assertion, which are very general points, which we have already discussed in the class. Okay? So I'm not taking up these points as such, but yes, I'm giving you all these points as to be read as homework. Okay? So with this, we have completed essay 230 and essay 500. I told you that in this chapter there are 9 essays, so 7 are still left. And here I would like to tell you that on Sunday, this time on Sunday, we are having a session, that too in the morning. Hana? So we are having a morning session on Sunday with respect to this chapter, followed by a session on Monday. So we have 2 sessions left after this session. So please attend the session on Sunday also, because I'll be covering at least 3 essays or 4. I'll try to cover 4 essays on that day. Okay? So we will do one thing. We will take a break of 10 minutes here, and after the break, I'll start with essay 580, which is very, very important, relating to what? Written representation. Okay? Meanwhile, please send in your replies whether you have understood or not, and also send in all your queries. Okay? So a break of 10 minutes here. So students, welcome back after the break. So I can see Sapna is saying, ma'am, it is clear. Vidya is also saying clear. Dhyanesh, Jyoti, everyone is saying, ma'am, it is clear. Okay. Students, please note this. I'm repeating it again. There is a session on Sunday, 6th November, which is the morning session from 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Okay. There is no evening session for auditing and assurance on that day. Hana? Now we are starting with SA 580 and the name is written representations. ठीक है, written representations. तो पहले we will discuss this topic in entirety and then I'll take you through the module. First we'll discuss this topic, entire topic of written representation. ठीक है. So what are written representation? What is the relevance of obtaining written representation in an audit of financial statement? Who obtains written representation from whom? For what all purposes written representation can be taken? What should be the date of written representation? All that we will be covering in SA 580. The name is very simple, written representation, and written representation are popularly known as what? WR, written representations. Okay? So, students, see, as I always tell you that the standards on auditing, they contain certain responsibilities that the auditor needs to follow while they are conducting the audit of the financial statements. So this essay, it deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain written representation from management and appropriate those charged with governance. So it deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain written representation from management or the appropriate those charged with governance. So we can understand that written representation कौन लेगा? Auditor लेगा किससे? Management या wherever appropriate those charged with governance. ठीक है? अब देखो students, we have done in essay 210 certain preconditions of audit in chapter number 1. अब क्विकली बताओ किस किस को याद है वो सब. क्विकली मेंशन एटलीस्ट द फर्स्ट प्री कंडीशन. क्विकली सेंड इन योर रिप्लाईज. चैप्टर 1 टर्म्स ऑफ ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट किया था ना आपने. So देखो students, we have done in chapter number 1 that the auditor will accept the audit when there are preconditions of audit, and to establish that whether preconditions are there, auditor will determine whether the management accepts its responsibility for preparation of financial statement, whether the management acknowledges and accepts its responsibility for implementation of internal control, for providing all information to the auditor, additional information and unrestricted access to persons within the entity to the auditor. Remember, है ना? तो अगर ये preconditions mentioned है, exist करते हैं, तभी audit लेंगे. ठीक है? Audit engagement में enter करेंगे. ठीक है? Now, when the auditor is signing his audit report, यहां पर तो क्या था? ऑडिटर ने मैनेजमेंट से बात किया इन टर्म्स ऑफ ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट कि देखो ये प्रीकंडीशंस होती हैं. मैनेजमेंट ने कहा हाँ मुझे पता है, आई एक्नॉलेज इट, आई एक्सेप्ट इट. Before signing the audit report, ना auditor will ask the management जो आपने 210 में जब हमने terms of audit engagement किया था, आपने कुछ preconditions accept भी तो किए थे. अब बिफोर साइनिंग द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट ना मुझे लिख के दे दो, मुझे एक रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे दो कि आपने वो सच में किया है, आपने सच में मुझे ऑल इंफॉर्मेशन दिया है, आपने सच में मुझे एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन दिया है, आपने सच में मुझे अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड एक्सेस दिया है. आपने सच में फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट एज पर एप्लीकेबल एफआरएफ दिया है, जो आपने यहाँ पे एक्नॉलेज किया था ना, एक्सेप्ट किया था, वो अब मुझे कंफर्म कर दो दैट ड्यूरिंग द ऑडिट मुझे ऑल इंफॉर्मेशन मिल गई है, एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन दे दी है, अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड एक्सेस दे दिया है, फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट जो आपने प्रिपेयर किए हैं ना एज पर एफआरएफ किए हैं। समझ आता है? सो रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन की मैनेजमेंट को ऑडिटर बोल रहा है कि मैनेजमेंट सुनो, मुझे ये सब ना राइटिंग में दे दो। तो व्हेन मैनेजमेंट विल गिव all these things in writing to the auditor, that paper is called what? Written representation. मैनेजमेंट कुछ बता रही है राइटिंग में, रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन। ठीक है। ऑल्सो लेट्स से दैट ऑडिटर ड्यूरिंग the course of audit he found that there are a number of related party transactions. So when the auditor is conducting he's verifying such related party transactions, or let's say there are certain litigations that are going against the company. When the auditor is verifying all such litigations, he can always ask the management कि management सुनो, मेरे को ना writing में दे दो कि whatever were the limitations, like you have disclosed all litigations to me and all litigations are duly accounted for in the books of accounts. देखो जहां पर all information की बात आती है ना, उसमें तो मैनेजमेंट से ही राइटिंग में लेना पड़ेगा ना, कि मैनेजमेंट लिख के दे दो कि आपने ऑल इंफॉर्मेशन दिया है नहीं, है ना? बिकॉज अनलेस एंड अंटिल मैनेजमेंट गिव्स इट टू मी इन राइटिंग, हाउ कैन ऑडिटर बी श्योर दैट वेदर ऑल इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन रिसीव्ड और नॉट? मैनेजमेंट गोइंग कंसर्न है ना कंपनी का, इसके लिए एक रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे दो मेरे को, है ना? मैनेजमेंट रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन से रिलेटेड आपने मेरे को सारी ट्रांजैक्शंस बता दी है ना, ये भी आप मेरे को लिख के दे दो, है ना? So auditor may ask for a number of written representations from the management. ठीक है? Now see, for example, with respect to litigation, today we will be covering SA 501 also. So there you will see that SA specifically asks the auditor. There is a responsibility on the auditor in terms of SA 501 that with respect to litigation, auditor please obtain written representation. है ना? तो ऐसे 580 says that auditor may obtain it a written representation if it is mentioned in the essay or otherwise also. Like with respect to, let's say, external confirmation from the debtor. With respect to one debtor, the auditor is not able to obtain the external confirmation. So auditor may ask the management कि management ये writing में दे दो मेरे को. Clear? ठीक है? So basically, auditor will have some additional audit evidence with respect to the assertion that he is checking. ठीक है? Now tell me students, written representation समझ आया कि मैं मैनेजमेंट को बार बार बोल रही हूँ कि मैनेजमेंट ये राइटिंग में देना, ये राइटिंग में देना, ठीक है? So written representation is a necessary audit evidence. एक ऑडिट एविडेंस ही तो है ना ये मेरे बाकी जो ऑडिट एविडेंस, लेट्स से विद रिस्पेक्ट टू लिटिगेशन आई हैव ऑब्टेन्ड अ नंबर ऑफ ऑडिट एविडेंस, सो दिस इज गोइंग टू सपोर्ट सच ऑडिट एविडेंस ना. सो ये नेसेसरी ऑडिट एविडेंस तो है ना? टेल मी, कैन रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑन इट्स ओन बी अ सफिशिएंट एप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस? मतलब let's say with respect to let's say going concern, I'm not performing any other audit procedure, I'm just asking the management कि management लिख के दे दो going concern, ठीक है ना? Tell me, can written representation alone be a sufficient appropriate audit evidence? Quickly, I need a yes or no. Mr. Ramchandra, I'll take up the difference between management and those charged with governance. Wait. So students, I need answers. So one answer is received, a number of answers are received, which is no. And for all those who are saying yes, फिर ऐसे तो I'll ask the management assets ठीक से आ रहे हैं? मैनेजमेंट कहेगा हाँ आ रहे हैं, अच्छा मुझे लिख के दे दो, मैनेजमेंट will give that in writing. I'll ask them मैनेजमेंट लाइबिलिटीज ठीक से आ रहे हैं, मैनेजमेंट तो रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे देगा उसके लिए भी, इनकम के लिए भी, एक्सपेंस के लिए भी. देन व्हाट इज द पर्पस ऑफ परफॉर्मिंग द अदर ऑडिट प्रोसीजर? So written representation, yes, it is a necessary audit evidence. It supports my other audit evidence, है ना? But it is in itself not a sufficient appropriate audit evidence. And the fact that the management has provided a reliable written representation, it is not going to affect as such the auditor's nature, timing, extent of audit procedures. जो वो काम कर रहे हैं वो तो करना ही है. This is an additional audit evidence in order to have the comfort with respect to the assertions that I'm checking, है ना? So okay, now tell me, what should be the date of written representation? Can it be, listen to the question, can it be after the date of audit report, कि जब मैंने अपना audit report दे दिया है, जब मैंने उसको sign कर दिया है, उसके बाद written representation ले सकते हैं management से? Quickly tell me, उसके बाद written representation ले सकते हैं management से? So the answer is no. Why? Because ये audit evidence है, necessary audit evidence है ना. Written representation हम क्या बोल रहे हैं कि management बताओ related party ठीक था, या all information has been given, litigation की all information has been given. So what is this? This is a necessary audit evidence ना. So how can I obtain an audit evidence after giving my opinion, after signing my audit report? So the date of the written representation should be as near as practicable to the audit report date, but not after the date of the audit report. So the term uses what? As near as practicable to the date of the audit report. Why as near as practicable to the date of the audit report? I'll just tell you just a minute. देखो, now students, अभी ना हम essay next session में essay 560 करेंगे, है ना? जहां पर you will see that let's say financial statement gets closed on 31st March 2022. But the audit report कब sign होती है? Let's say on 31st October 2022. है ना? So you will see when we will be doing essay 560 that the auditor is responsible till the events occurring till here, that is till the date of the auditor's report. तो तभी तो हम मैनेजमेंट को बोल रहे हैं कि मैनेजमेंट यहाँ पर मेरे को एक रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे दो कि जो फैक्ट्स आपको मुझे डिस्क्लोज करने चाहिए थे आपने कर दिए ना. सो दैट इज व्हाई एज नियर एज प्रैक्टिकेबल टू द डेट ऑफ द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट बट नॉट आफ्टर द डेट ऑफ द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट. ठीक है? सो एज नियर एज प्रैक्टिकेबल बट नॉट आफ्टर. तो बिफोर या ऑन द डेट भी हो सकता है बट नॉट आफ्टर द डेट ऑफ द ऑडिट रिपोर्ट. तो देखो व्हाट इज द ऑब्जेक्टिव. ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? First of all, to obtain written representation with respect to 210 वाले preconditions कि आपने वो किए ना. To support other audit evidence, जैसे I gave you example of your debtor confirmation कि मेरे को external confirmation नहीं मिल रहा है, so I may ask the management कि management ये लिख के दे दो कि ये balance correct है, ठीक है? या this is the reason why that party is not replying, and to respond appropriately. अभी हम डिटेल में ऐसे से पढ़ेंगे टू रिस्पॉन्ड एप्रोप्रिएटली. देखो व्हेन द ऑडिटर विल आस्क द मैनेजमेंट कि मैनेजमेंट मुझे रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन दो, देयर कैन बी टू सिचुएशन. मैनेजमेंट रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे देता है, मैनेजमेंट रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं देता है. एंड स्टूडेंट्स, व्हेन वी वर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट सफिशिएंसी एंड एप्रोप्रिएटनेस ऑफ ऑडिट एविडेंस इन द लास्ट सेशन, आई टोल्ड यू दैट एब्सेंस ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन is also one of the audit evidence. So when management is refusing to give a written representation, then how to respond, है ना? Because देखो written representation क्या है? written representation में आप मैनेजमेंट से पूछ रहे हो कि मैनेजमेंट आप ना कंफर्म कर दो कि आपने फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट एज पर एप्लीकेबल एफआरएफ बनाया है, आपने मुझे ऑल इन्फॉर्मेशन दिया है. मैनेजमेंट कहता है मैं नहीं दे रहा आपको ये इन्फॉर्मेशन. Tell me, see this was the basis on which you were conducting the audit कि मुझे सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल जाएगा. मैनेजमेंट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट एज पर एप्लीकेबल एफआरएफ बना रहा है, बट नाउ मैनेजमेंट इज सेइंग आई कैन नॉट गिव दिस टू यू इन राइटिंग. सी नाउ ऑडिटर विल रिस्पॉन्ड एप्रोप्रिएटली, बिकॉज ये कोई ऐसा थोड़ी ना कि एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन मांगा, डेटर ने नहीं दिया तो ऑल्टरनेट प्रोसीजर कर लिया या मैनेजमेंट से रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन ले लिया. ये तो बेसिकली क्या हो गया कि जिस बेसिस पे आप काम कर रहे थे एट द एंड ऑफ द ऑडिट यू फाउंड दैट बेसिस वाज नॉट करेक्ट. मैनेजमेंट ये लिख के ही नहीं दे रहा है. देन हाउ टू रिस्पॉन्ड एप्रोप्रिएटली. तो अभी मैंने आपको सिर्फ क्या बताया कि what all we are going to study in this essay. Very interesting, very practical, very logical, very important. आपको क्या समझना है, बस try to visualize yourself in a situation whereby you are asking the management कि management मेरे को इस पर्पस के लिए रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन दे दो. रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन क्या होता है, क्या क्या पर्पस है, सब कुछ समझ आ जाएगा, सब कुछ लर्न हो जाएगा. विजुअलाइज करो एंड सेशन को ध्यान से सुनो. देखो, it deals with the auditor's responsibility to obtain written representation from management and where appropriate do start with governance. ठीक है, तो ये ऐसे स्टार्ट करने से पहले एक टॉपिक को मैं रिपीट कर रही हूँ जो मैंने चैप्टर नंबर 1 में भी बताया था आपको. मैनेजमेंट एंड डो स्टार्ट विद गवर्नेंस में क्या डिफरेंस है. देखो, मैनेजमेंट कौन होते हैं? दीज आर द पर्सन्स विद एग्जीक्यूटिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर द कंडक्ट ऑफ द एंटिटीज ऑपरेशंस, like your CEO, CFO, which are responsible for the day-to-day activities or operations of the entity. है ना. फिर those charged with governance क्या होते हैं? Those charged with governance are those who are interested with the responsibilities for giving strategic direction to the company. They are responsible for supervising the financial reporting process. है ना. So those charged with governance are who are responsible for what? Your overall seeing the financial reporting process. है ना. But in certain organization students, for example, there is a sole proprietorship concern. अब यहां पर तो एक ही ओनर है. He is the management who is responsible for day-to-day functioning for preparation of financial statement, and he is responsible for supervising the financial reporting process. तो यहाँ पर तो those charged with governance and management में as such there is no demarcation ना. Also, for example, in case of partnership firm, यहाँ पर भी like say 2 partners है, तो वो ही partners involved है presentation of financial statement में, वो ही partners involved है day-to-day activities में, वो ही partners involved है supervising में. So as such, you cannot say that there is a strict demarcation. With respect to companies, for example, section 177, this section you will be doing in your chapter number 10. Wahan par there is a requirement of audit committee. The companies are required to constitute audit committee with respect to, like certain companies are required to constitute audit committees. So their audit committees, what? Those charged with governance. ठीक है. सो मैनेजमेंट कौन होता है? पर्सन्स विद एग्जीक्यूटिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फॉर द कंडक्ट ऑफ एंटिटीज ऑपरेशन. और दोज चार्ज विद गवर्नेंस कौन होते हैं? विच हु आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द स्ट्रैटेजिक डायरेक्शन एंड द ऑब्लिगेशन रिलेटिंग टू व्हाट? अकाउंटेबिलिटी ऑफ द कंपनी. ठीक है. नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज किससे लेना है रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन? तो देखो, whoever is involved in the preparation and presentation of financial statements, जिसको भी नॉलेज है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स का. बिकॉज रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन क्या ले रहे हैं हम कि आपने फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट FRF से बनाया, तो जो भी इन्वॉल्व है ना, सो रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम दैट पर्सन. अगर आपको रिलेटेड पार्टी से लेना है तो whoever has the knowledge of that matter, है ना, सो रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम दैट पर्सन. ठीक है, अब समझ आता है रामचंद्र? योर डाउट इज क्लियर. सो डील्स विद द ऑडिटर्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू ऑब्टेन रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम द मैनेजमेंट और वेयर एप्रोप्रिएट दोज चार्ज्ड विद गवर्नेंस. सो व्हाट इज द डेफिनेशन? दीज आर द written statement by management to the auditor to confirm certain matters or to support other audit evidence. To confirm certain matters, preconditions कि मैनेजमेंट बताओ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज फुलफिल की है ना, जो आपने एक्नॉलेज तब कर दी थी. टू सपोर्ट अदर ऑडिट एविडेंस, रिलेटेड पार्टी, योर लेट्स से लिटिगेशंस, है ना, गोइंग कंसर्न, है ना, कि लॉ रेगुलेशन सब अब फॉलो किया है नहीं. तो व्हाट इज दिस? रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन. Written representation do not include financial statement assertions therein, supporting books and records. So you might say कि मैम ये written statement है by management to the auditor, तो मतलब financial statements ही हैं? नहीं, financial statements का ही तो audit चल रहा है ना. उसके ऊपर financial statement with respect to financial statement written representations are given. So written representation do not include what? Financial statements or the books and records. ठीक है. Written representation are requested from those responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statements. ठीक है. Written representation provide necessary audit evidence. Tell me whether this is true or false, this first statement. CEO, CFO can give the written representation, Dhyanesh. Yes, written representations can be put in the audit file. So this is true. Tell me with respect to second, write 2 and then your answer. Written representation do not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence on their own. Priyanka, Jyoti, Vidya, Khojema, Dhyanesh. Absolutely correct. Send me the reply with respect to the next also. So the answer is true. Written representation do not provide. ठीक है, रिलायबल रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन मिल गया है, इट विल नॉट इफेक्ट द नेचर एक्सटेंट ऑफ ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स. वो तो आपको काम करना ही है. व्हाई? बिकॉज ये सपोर्ट करता है आपके अदर ऑडिट एविडेंस को. ये कोई सफिशिएंट एप्रोप्रिएट नहीं है. व्हाट इज द ऑब्जेक्टिव? टू ऑब्टेन रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू व्हाट? मैनेजमेंट्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू सपोर्ट अदर ऑडिट एविडेंस एंड टू रिस्पॉन्ड एप्रोप्रिएटली. अभी ये डिस्कस करेंगे. वैसे आई टोल्ड यू कि या तो मिल जाएगा रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन या नहीं मिलेगा, तो कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करना है. ठीक है. Now management from whom WR is requested. देखो, management with appropriate responsibility for preparation of financial statement and having knowledge of the matters concerned. Related party से चाहिए आपको with respect to related party litigation. तो जिसको knowledge होगी उससे से तो लोगे ना. पियोन से थोड़ी ना ले लोगे रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन, या HR डिपार्टमेंट से थोड़ी ना ले लोगे. Those responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statement. CEO, CFO, whose doubt was it? Dhyanesh. Is it clear now? And other equivalent persons are those who can give written representation. In some cases, अच्छा देखो, in some cases management make inquiries of others who participate in preparation and presentation of financial statement. For example, with respect to the litigations, how the liability with respect to the litigation going against the company needs to be presented in the financial statement. Let's say the management had taken a service of legal expert, है ना, or let's say with respect to any environmental liability, the company is, let's say, situated in the state of northeastern states, so there might be some environmental liability. So certain staff engineers services has been taken by the management. Now when the management has taken the services of all these management expert in preparing and presenting financial statements, so it might be possible that when the management is giving the written representation, they may make inquiries of all those legal experts or staff engineers, which is absolutely fine, है ना. They may also mention it in their written representation कि हम ये जो लिख रहे हैं ना, हमने उनसे पूछ के लिखा है. वो कैसे लिखा है ये अभी I show you a practical sample written representation, then you will be able to relate to it. पर इतना समझ आता है, ठीक है. Individuals, like who others? Individuals having specialized knowledge relating to matters about which written representation is requested. For example, actuaries, staff engineers, या internal legal counsel. So auditor may, the management may mention that we have made certain inquiries of these persons. Based on that, we have presented and prepared the financial statement with respect to this topic. When the management is giving the written representation, the management may use certain qualifying language, like to the best of our knowledge, we are giving this information, which is absolutely okay. It is reasonable for the auditor to accept such wording if auditor is satisfied that such written representation is given by knowledgeable person and that written representation is what? Appropriate. Simple, very basic points. Written representation about what all? That management has fulfilled its responsibility for preparation of financial statement as per applicable FRF. That management has provided all relevant information and access, and all transactions are recorded and reflected in the financial statement. And how will the same be mentioned in the written representation? The way it was mentioned in the terms of audit engagement now with respect to responsibilities, same way it will come here. So description of management responsibility in written representation, it will be same as it was described in terms of audit engagement. Simple. Now, with apart from responsibilities of the management, other written representation as required by other SA, I gave you example of SS 501, which says that auditor with respect to litigation obtain written representation, and if auditor determines it necessary to do so, as and when the audit will proceed, wherever auditor feels that there is a, as per his professional judgment, there is a need to obtain a written representation, he may obtain that. Okay. Now, further it says that, see, terms of audit engagement, there the management responsibilities were acknowledged by the management. Okay? Now, let's say that management has changed. Then, though, there is a need to obtain written representation immediately. Na? So, auditor may ask management to reconfirm its acknowledgement. कौन सा वाला acknowledgement जो 210 में लिया था, and understanding of its responsibility when in these circumstances. मतलब यहाँ पर तो आपको पक्का से तभी की तभी confirm करवा लो. Those who signed the terms of audit engagement have changed. है ना, CEO, CFO जिन्होंने sign किया था, they have changed. है ना. The terms of audit engagement were prepared previously. If you remember, we have done in chapter number 1 that there is no need to prepare the terms of engagement again and again unless there is a revision. So if the terms of engagement were prepared earlier, so obtain the written representation की जो वहां पर mention था, whether you have accepted it or not. If there is an indication that management has misunderstood its responsibility, suppose last year you realize at the end of the audit that management has misunderstood their responsibility, then obtain the written representation immediately, and if there are any changes in circumstances. Okay? What is the date? It shall be as near as practicable to, but not after the date of the auditor's report on the financial statement. अब समझ आ गया होगा ना, because we have understood 560 subsequent event वाले से भी, though 560 I'll be taking in detail in the next session. Audit report cannot be dated before the date of written representation. Why? Because written representation is supporting my other audit evidence, and this point we have covered. Now, it will be in the form of representation letter addressed to the auditor. Like it will be on the letterhead of the client addressed to the auditor. Okay? Now, if there is a doubt with respect to reliability of written representation, auditor को लग रहा है that management ना honest है ही नहीं, management की written representation पे ना doubt है auditor को. Or the other case which is discussed is if management is not providing the written representation. So basically here we will be discussing this case जो I told you ना, to respond appropriately. तो अब क्या करें? देखो, अगर मैनेजमेंट ने रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिया और सही था सब कुछ, तो यूज इट एज एन ऑडिट एविडेंस, कीप इट इन योर फाइल, यू एंड प्रोसीड फर्दर. इफ मैनेजमेंट प्रोवाइड्स रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन एंड देयर इज अ डाउट regarding the reliability of such written representation, or if management does not provide written representation, तो क्या करना है? Now we are discussing that. So, doubt as to reliability of written representation. So if the auditor has a concern about the competence, integrity, ethical value of management, कि management is not honest, है ना, consider its effect on the reliability of representation and audit evidence, है ना, consider the impact on the reliability of the written representation and other audit evidence. देखो, you must have obtained various audit evidence which were internal documents of the organization, तो अब उसकी reliability में तो doubt आ गया ना. If written representation is inconsistent with the other audit evidence, for example, management gave you a written representation that there are, let's say, 20 litigation that are going against the company, Hana. But when you obtained an audit evidence from the internal legal counsel of the company, legal department of the company, आपने उनसे बात की ना, उन्होंने तो बताया कि 25 litigations are going on. So there is an inconsistency ना, management ने तो लिख के दिया 20 litigations है, आपको पता चला 25 है. तो written representation is what? Inconsistent with other audit evidence. पहले क्या करोगे? सीधा थोड़ी ना audit छोड़ देते हैं हम. तो क्या करते हैं? Perform audit procedure to resolve the matter. If that matter is still unresolved, रिकंसीडर, देखो आप बहुत बड़ी बात बोल रहे हो कि मैनेजमेंट ऑनेस्ट नहीं है, तो रिकंसीडर द रिलायबिलिटी द ऑनेस्टी ऑफ द मैनेजमेंट, कंसीडर द इफेक्ट ऑन रिप्रेजेंटेशन, रिकंसीडर करो ये वाला स्टेप, तो दैट इज व्हाई आई पुट एन एरो। इफ ऑडिटर कंक्लूड्स कि हाँ रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं है रिलायबल, मैनेजमेंट जो बोल रहा है ना, मैनेजमेंट गलत बोल रहा है। अब देखो यहां पर आपको ये नहीं बोला कि परफॉर्म ऑल्टरनेट प्रोसीजर्स, यहाँ पर स्ट्रेट अवे ऑडिटर हैज बीन गिवन द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू टेक एप्रोप्रिएट एक्शन एंड कंसीडर द पॉसिबल इफेक्ट ऑन द ओपिनियन, दैट इज मॉडिफाई योर ओपिनियन इन टर्म्स ऑफ SA 705। Why? Because I conducted the audit based on the assumption that the management is providing me with all the information। अब मैनेजमेंट ने जो इंफॉर्मेशन दिया है जिसका मैंने ऑडिट किया वो पता नहीं ठीक है नहीं, डाउट है, तो अब ऑल्टरनेट प्रोसीजर करने से थोड़ी ना काम चलेगा, अब तो सीधा आई विल हैव टू टेक एप्रोप्रिएट एक्शन। सो एप्रोप्रिएट एक्शन कैन बी, सपोज मैनेजमेंट हैज प्रोवाइडेड मी विद द इंफॉर्मेशन, आई विल कम्युनिकेट विद दोज चार्ज्ड विद गवर्नेंस, है ना, आई विल कंसीडर द पॉसिबल इफेक्ट ऑन ओपिनियन। पॉसिबल क्यों लिखा है? बिकॉज पता नहीं है ना, डाउट है ना अबाउट द रिलायबिलिटी, तो पॉसिबल इफेक्ट मतलब अब आपको ओपिनियन मॉडिफाई करना पड़ेगा। अब आप ये तो बोल नहीं सकते हो दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट रिफ्लेक्ट ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू, बिकॉज द प्रीमाइस ऑन विच यू आर कंडक्टिंग द ऑडिट की सब इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रहा है, एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन मिल रहा है, मैनेजमेंट रिस्पॉन्सिबल है, पता नहीं वो सब है या नहीं। क्लियर? इफ रिक्वेस्टेड रिटर्न रिप्रेजेंटेशन इज नॉट प्रोवाइडेड, फिर क्या करना है? डिस्कस विद मैनेजमेंट कि मैनेजमेंट बताओ क्या बात है। After the discussion also management doesn't agree, तो step number 1 and 2 मतलब reconsider the concerns about competence, integrity, ethical values of management and determine the effect on reliability. And second step is what? Auditor to take appropriate action, that is consider the possible effect on the opinion, SA 705। देखो if you will try to understand this, in fact all the essays as a story ना, कि ऐसा होगा तो ऐसा होगा, ऐसा होगा तो ऐसा होगा, this is going to be very much clear to you। एंड यहाँ पे no cramming is required, बस practically आप सोचो, visualize करो and you will be able to give answers, correct answers to, you may get a straightforward 4-mark question here, that what are the course of action available for the auditor if there are doubt on the reliability of written representation, ठीक है? Or you may get a question that from whom the management may request the written representation, ठीक है? Or you may get MCQ, you may get true false, ठीक है? Now before taking you through the module, let me just take you through one of the sample written representation letter। तो जो many of you are saying मैम ये कैसे आएगा, देखो, so it will be on the entity's letterhead, मतलब जो client है उसके letterhead पे it will be addressed to the auditor and date is very important, it cannot be after the date of the audit report, है ना? The representation letter is provided in connection with audit of financial statement of ABC Limited. C. We confirm that to the best of our knowledge. तो अगर ऐसा कोई language management is using, that is absolutely fine. Having made such inquiries, देखो यहाँ पर management लिख दिया ना कि हमने भी legal expert actuaries का भी inquire किया, ठीक है? और क्या क्या? We have fulfilled our responsibilities as set out in the audit engagement, है ना? Letter dated so and so for preparation of financial statement in accordance with financial reporting standards and all that, right? Then accounting estimates used by us are reasonable. So auditor is giving what? Written representation with respect to all these matter. Related party relationship transaction have been appropriately accounted for, disclosed in accordance with applicable FRF. All subsequent events to the date of financial statement for which applicable accounting standards required disclosures have been made, and any other matter. Further, we have provided you कौन है? Auditor, with access to all information, additional information, unrestricted access as it is, है ना? Preconditions जो आपने SA 210 में पढ़े हैं। Yes, खोजेमा. All transactions have been recorded. We have disclosed you results of our assessments. We have disclosed you all the information, है ना, जो भी fraud से related है. We have disclosed you all the information relating to fraud, non-compliance अगर है तो हमने सब बता दिया, और देखो it will be signed by the management. Clear? प्रैक्टिकली भी वही होगा जो आप पढ़ रहे हो। ठीक है, इज इट क्लियर? ठीक है, सो लेट अस जस्ट क्विकली हैव अ लुक एट योर मॉड्यूल. First of all, for all those who want to take a screenshot of this, may take it. Just a minute. Just a minute. So this is written representation. So you may take a screenshot if you want. Next 2 pages. Or you may just pause and make your own notes. ठीक है? Now let me just take you through the module. So essay 580 है ना? Written representation. Auditor's responsibility to obtain written representation from management or where appropriate those charged with governance. Definition क्या है? These are statement by management, written statement by management provided to the auditor to confirm certain matters or to support other audit evidence. Can this be used? So although written representation provide necessary audit evidence, very, very important true false MCQ, they do not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence on their own about the matters. And furthermore, the fact that management has provided reliable written representation does not affect the nature and extent of other audit procedure. देखो ये question बहुत अच्छा है, illustration. The auditor of P is conducting the audit of Kapoor Industries. The auditor requests the management to provide banker certificate with respect to FDs. पर management क्या कहता है कि banker certificate तो नहीं है, written representation ले लो, only written representation ले लो. So is it sufficient appropriate audit evidence? The answer is no. Although written representation provide necessary audit evidence, they do not provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Furthermore, the fact that management has provided written representation does not affect the nature extent of other audit procedures. So the auditor would further request the management to provide him with banker certificate. Clear? Objective क्या है? To obtain written representation with respect to what? Responsibilities. To support other audit evidence, to respond appropriately. ठीक है? देखो यहाँ लिखा है ना, fulfilled audits responsibility, given all the information. मैनेजमेंट कौन? जो प्रिपरेशन एंड प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए है एंड हु हैज द नॉलेज. ठीक है, यहाँ पे ये जो हमने पढ़ा है सब कुछ है. एंड मैनेजमेंट में make inquiries of certain persons with specialized knowledge like actuary, staff engineer, internal counsel. ठीक है, management may use the language like these are made to the best of your knowledge. It is reasonable to accept that. Only written representation cannot be sufficient appropriate audit evidence, Yatiraj. If management is saying na that I have provided with you all the information, additional information, फिर भी वो check तो करना ही है ना auditor को, because auditor is giving an opinion ना. तो ये हमने पढ़ लिया है, completeness, that all information मिल गया है. Same way, the weight is mentioned in terms of engagement. If essays are saying, then also you can obtain. Otherwise, also you can obtain written representation. And these are the cases जहाँ पर there is a change in those who sign terms of engagement. Terms of engagement previous years में बने थे, या indication की misunderstanding है, या change in circumstances, तो written representation लेना ही है. Very important. Date of written representation shall be as practicable to, but not after the date of the auditor's report on the financial statement. Form shall be, it shall be in the form of representation letter. Important, true false आ सकता है ना, that written representation shall be sent by the auditor to the management, which is what? False. By management to auditor जाता है ना. Doubt है तो क्या करें? Doubt है तो attempt to resolve the matter. नहीं कर पा रहे हो तो reconsider करो, नहीं तो कंसीडर करो इफेक्ट ऑन द रिलायबिलिटी ऑफ रिटन रिप्रेजेंटेशन. अगर कंक्लूड कर लेते हो कि नॉट रिलायबल है तो ऐसे 705. अगर मैनेजमेंट प्रोवाइड नहीं करता है, स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड 3 मार्क क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. discuss with the matter with management, reevaluate the integrity of management and evaluate the effect that may have on reliability of representation and evidence in general. Because audit evidence आपका बहुत ज्यादा internal भी तो होगा ना, अब बताओ वो ठीक है या नहीं, ये भी तो नहीं पता ना. Take appropriate actions including determining possible effect on opinion in the auditor's report in accordance with SA 705. Quickly बताओ written representation समझ आया and whether you found this topic interesting or not. And easy also. I tried to make it very easy and simple for you. Quickly send in your replies. I need to start with another audit standard on auditing. Though we will not be able to complete it, but as I've told you that this time we are having only 5 sessions. So I don't want to leave any topic as such. So I'll start with the next essays, but see, auditor can always, if the situation is requiring, Priyanka, auditor can withdraw from the audit engagement also, or what is the option? He can always give consider the effect on the audit report, because audit report ke basis pe hi to the users are going to read the audited financial statement na, and you will see that in the audit report, auditor can mention that the financial statement do not reflect a true and fair. Or they reflect a true and fair view subject to some things. So auditor can always mention that in the auditor's report. Okay. Now quickly tell me what was SA 500. So it was what? I'll not wait for replies now. Your replies now. It was SA 500 was what? It was audit evidence. Audit evidence, है ना? तो एक brief idea I'll give you about like the discussions with respect to SA 501 we will have today, and जो reading aspect है that we will have on Sunday morning session. So SA 500 क्या है? Audit evidence, ठीक है? SA 501 क्या है? कि audit evidence तो obtain करना है, but this essay specifically mentions certain specific considerations for selected items. ठीक है? ठीक है? देखो, जब आप SA 500 फॉलो करते हैं ना, what was the objective? To perform audit procedures in order to obtain audit evidence, to draw conclusions on which to base auditor's opinion. यही objective था SA 500 का. That during the process of audit, during the course of audit, audit procedures perform करने, क्योंकि audit evidence obtain करना है. With respect to various assertions, है ना? हमने assertions भी पढ़ा, सब कुछ पढ़ा, है ना? अब जैसे inventory है, with respect to inventory, there can be various assertions like exist करती है या नहीं, valuation proper है या नहीं, classification proper है या नहीं, disclosure proper है या नहीं. Now this essay says that SA 500 तो क्या था? All assertions, all items of financial statement, है ना? Now SA 501 says that not about all assertions, not about all items, but only about 3 items, which are inventory, litigation and claim, and segment reporting. So this SA 501 tells the auditor कि auditor सुनो, आपको SA 500 तो you need to follow, but when you need to verify the inventory, the litigation and claims, and segment information, follow me, SA 501. And auditor, listen to me more particularly with respect to inventory. The provisions that are contained in me, these are not related to all the assertions. Only with respect to specific consideration, existence of inventory. अगर आपको existence of inventory देखना है ना, तो मेरे तो जो audit procedures mentioned है in SA 501, refer to that. Not all assertions. So try to understand the name, and after understanding, I'm sure जो आप पूछते हो ना मेरे से, मैम ये name learn करना है, तो आपको कैसे नहीं याद होगा, मुझे समझ नहीं आता। देखो, ऑडिट एविडेंस, स्पेसिफिक कंसिडरेशंस फॉर सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स। ऐसे 501 क्या कहता है, ऑडिट एविडेंस लो ऑडिटर, लेकिन सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स के लिए बता रहा हूं, दैट टू स्पेसिफिक कंसिडरेशंस। ठीक है, सो इट डील्स विद द स्पेसिफिक कंसिडरेशंस बाय द ऑडिटर इन ऑब्टेनिंग, देखो सफिशिएंट एप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस तो लेना है। एंड इन फैक्ट 500 सीरीज के जितने भी एसेस वी आर गोइंग टू परफॉर्म, सभी का पर्पस क्या होगा, टू ऑब्टेन सफिशिएंट एप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस with respect to certain aspects of inventory litigation and claims and segment information. So what are those specific considerations and what are those selected items? ठीक है, अब देखो सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स कौन कौन से हैं। इन्वेंट्री, तो अगर आपको बिल्डिंग के लिए देखना है कोई इंफॉर्मेशन, तो दैट यू कैन नॉट रेफर टू SA 501। कैश के लिए देखना है, यू कैन नॉट रेफर टू SA 501। ये तो इन्वेंट्री की बात कर रहा है बस। लिटिगेशन एंड क्लेम्स, सेगमेंट इंफॉर्मेशन इन अकॉर्डेंस विद एप्लीकेबल FRA। ऑल्सो इन्वेंट्री का वैल्यूएशन देखना है, तो डू नॉट कम टू SA 501। सिर्फ अगर एग्जिस्टेंस एंड कंडीशन देखना है ना इन्वेंट्री का, तो रेफर टू SA 501। कंप्लीटनेस ऑफ लिटिगेशन एंड क्लेम देखना है, तो रेफर टू SA 501। प्रेजेंटेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर ऑफ सेगमेंट इंफॉर्मेशन देखना है, तो रेफर टू SA 501। ठीक है, अब देखो ध्यान से सुनो। ऑडिट एविडेंस, ऑडिट एविडेंस, ऑडिट एविडेंस को ऑब्टेन करना है। स्पेसिफिक कंसिडरेशंस, कौन सी, ये वाली, फॉर सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स। कौन से आइटम्स हैं, सिर्फ ये वाले। समझ आया? ऑडिट एविडेंस ऐसे 500, तो थ्रू आउट द ऑडिट ऑडिटर हैज बीन गिवन अ स्टैंडर्ड कि अगर आपको ड्यूरिंग द course of audit you need to perform audit procedure to obtain audit evidence to draw various conclusions to give your opinion. SA 501 कहता है स्पेसिफिक कंसिडरेशन फॉर सिलेक्टेड आइटम है, तो मैं बताता हूं कि कैसे करना है। पहले क्विकली बताओ, समझ आया? SA 500 एंड 501 में क्या डिफरेंस है? स्टूडेंट्स, आई नीड आंसर्स क्विकली। आई एम ट्राइंग माई लेवल बेस्ट टू सिंप्लीफाई ईच एंड एवरीथिंग फॉर यू। तो you can always, you should always send answer to the queries that I raise to you. ठीक है, अब देखो इन्वेंट्री को कैसे वेरीफाई करना है। इन्वेंट्री का क्या देख रहे हैं हम, सिर्फ एग्जिस्टेंस एंड कंडीशन एजर्शन। वैल्यूएशन वगैरह देखना है, वो तो सब अदर ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स होगा ना, जो ऑडिटर विल हैव टू परफॉर्म। तो ये क्या कहता है, इट सेज दैट ऑडिटर, तो कौन कौन से थे, इन्वेंट्री, लिटिगेशन एंड क्लेम एंड योर सेगमेंट इंफॉर्मेशन। तो इन्वेंट्री को कैसे करना है? सो स्टूडेंट्स, इन्वेंट्री का फिजिकल वेरिफिकेशन इज द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ मैनेजमेंट। दिस इज, तो यू आर क्लियर, मैनेजमेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर प्रिपरेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट। प्रिपरेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में क्लोजिंग स्टॉक का भी तो वैल्यू आता है, तो मैनेजमेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट। ठीक है, तो ऑडिटर क्या करे, ऑडिटर को SA 501 करता है, बोलता है कि जब मैनेजमेंट, ये कौन है मेरा मैनेजमेंट, ये कौन है कंपनी का स्टाफ जो काउंटिंग कर रहा है, और ये कौन है ऑडिटर। ठीक है, ये साइन मैंने अब कहां बनाया था, क्विकली बताओ कौन से ऑडिट प्रोसीजर में बनाया था। तो SA 501 कहता है ऑडिटर एक काम करो, जब भी मैनेजमेंट फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट करवा रहा है ना अपने पर्सोनल से, पर्सोनल मतलब स्टाफ से, अटेंड करो दैट फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट अनलेस इम्प्रैक्टिकेबल। अगर नहीं जा सकते तो अलग बात है, और वो कब नहीं जा सकते वो भी हम डिस्कस करेंगे। एंड इफ इन्वेंट्री इज मटीरियल, अब मटेरियल थिंग्स पे तो आप टाइम एंड रिसोर्सेज लगाओगे ना, ये तो आपको पता है, आपने ऐसे 320 कर दिया है, आपका मटेरियलिटी लेवल तो 2 lakhs का है, इन्वेंट्री का अमाउंट 10,000 है, तो थोड़ी ना ये सब करोगे। ठीक है, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट ज्योति, सपना, प्रियंका, ध्यानेश। तो ऑडिटर ने SA 501 क्या बोलता है, आपको ऑडिटर, यू नीड टू अटेंड द फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट जो मैनेजमेंट अपने स्टाफ से करवा रहा है। ठीक है। तो ऑडिटर पूछता है अटेंड करके क्या करना है, वापस आ जाना है? नहीं। ऐसे 501 कहता है जब आप अटेंड करते हो ना, आप देखो मैनेजमेंट जो है ना अपने स्टाफ को कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शंस तो देता होगा, कुछ प्रोसीजर्स बताता होगा ना कि इन्वेंट्री काउंट ऐसे करो, इन्वेंट्री काउंट के रिकॉर्ड को ऐसे रखो। तो वो जो रिकॉर्ड्स है ना और जो मैनेजमेंट के इंस्ट्रक्शंस है उसको इवेल्युएट करो कि मैनेजमेंट वहां खड़े होके क्या बोल रहा है, कैसे फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंटिंग हो रही है, कैसे रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है। ठीक है। प्लस ऑब्जर्व करो। ऑब्जर्वेशन इज द प्रोसेस बीइंग परफॉर्म्ड बाय अदर्स। ऑब्जर्व द एंटायर प्रोसेस। देखो जब कंपनीज में प्रैक्टिकली आपका इन्वेंट्री काउंट होता है ना, तो उस टाइम पे क्या होता है, जो भी इन एंड आउट फ्रॉम द इन्वेंट्री है वो स्टॉप हो जाता है। तो ऑब्जर्व करो वो एक्चुअली हो रहा है या नहीं। ऑब्जर्व करो मैनेजमेंट क्या इंस्ट्रक्शन दे रहा है। ठीक है। ऑब्जर्व द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ मैनेजमेंट इन्वेंट्री काउंट। इंस्पेक्ट द इन्वेंट्री। कुछ ये सपोज दीज आर व्हाट राइस बैग्स, तो इंस्पेक्ट भी कर लो ना, फिजिकल एग्जामिनेशन ऑफ एसेट, इंस्पेक्ट कर लो ना कुछ बैग्स को। एंड परफॉर्म टेस्ट काउंट। जो स्टाफ ने काउंटिंग की है ना, दोबारा से आप भी कर लो उस काउंट को। फॉर एग्जाम्पल सपोज दिस इज द गोडाउन, इस वाले एरिया का स्टाफ ने काउंटिंग कर दिया, आप भी रिकाउंट कर लो ना इसको। टेस्ट काउंट इज व्हाट? इन्वेंट्री काउंटेड बाय द ऑडिटर टू चेक द क्लाइंट्स काउंट। सिंपल है ना, देखो बहुत लॉजिकल है। आपको एग्जिस्टेंस देखना है कि भाई जितना इन्वेंट्री लिखा है 10 करोड़ का इन्वेंट्री है, वो एग्जिस्ट करता है नहीं, 10 करोड़ का एग्जिस्ट करता है या नहीं। ठीक है। राइस बैग्स हैं लेट्स से। तो सबसे पहले क्या बोला, अटेंड करो अनलेस इम्प्रैक्टिकेबल। अटेंड करोगे ना, क्यों? बिकॉज फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट तो कौन करता है? मैनेजमेंट करता है। इवेल्युएट करो whatever management instructions and procedures are there for recording and controlling the results of physical inventory count। जो भी ये दोनों काम कर रहे हैं स्टाफ, जो भी इसका रिकॉर्ड बन रहा है, जो भी फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री, देखो अब जब ये फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट कर रहे हैं, ये कुछ मेंटेन कर रहे होंगे ना डॉक्यूमेंट्स, तो ये जो रिजल्ट्स है ना, इसको कैसे रिकॉर्ड करना है, इसको कैसे कंट्रोल करना है, लाइक they will be putting signatures, then management will be putting signatures। सब कुछ देखो, इवैल्यूएट करो, ऑब्जर्व करो, इंस्पेक्ट करो, परफॉर्म करो, टेस्ट काउंट। समझ आता है? ये डायग्राम समझ आता है? आता है। ठीक है। नाउ देन द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज, लेट्स से सी फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट मैनेजमेंट लेट्स से 31 मार्च को कर रहा है, व्हेन द अमाउंट इज टू बी द क्लोजिंग स्टॉक विल कम वेयर इन द बैलेंस शीट। और इसी को दिस ओनली एग्जिस्टेंस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू, आई गेव एग्जांपल ऑफ 10 सीआर ना, कि यही तो एजर्शन चेक करनी है ऑडिटर को। नाउ लेट्स से इफ द मैनेजमेंट इज कंडक्टिंग द फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट ऑन 4th April, बट मैनेजमेंट को तो ये वाला वेरीफाई करना है ना, तो इट सेज मैनेजमेंट सुनो, अटेंड करो फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट ऑन दिस डेट, और ये सारे काम करो। जब भी मैनेजमेंट कर रहा है आप भी तभी अटेंड करो। प्लस जो ये इंटरवेनिंग पीरियड है ना बिटवीन द डेट ऑफ बैलेंस शीट एंड द डेट ऑफ फिजिकल इन्वेंट्री काउंट, यहाँ पे जो भी सेल्स परचेज हुई है ना, उसको डिटेल में चेक कर लो। आपने 4th April को इन्वेंट्री काउंट किया, यू आर सेटिस्फाइड विद द रिजल्ट्स। ठीक है। इसके अंदर जो ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड सेल्स किया है, या जो ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड परचेजेस किया है, अगर आप उसको लेस कर दोगे, यू विल अराइव एट द क्लोजिंग स्टॉक ऑन 31 March ना। क्लियर? तो इट सेज कि अटेंड ऑन दैट ऑल्टरनेट डे, प्लस इंटरवेनिंग पीरियड के लिए जो भी ट्रांजैक्शन है कंसीडर दैट। ठीक है। Then it says, suppose physical inventory count was scheduled for 31st March, but due to unforeseen circumstance, let's say the team meets an accident. Unforeseen, जो आपने पहले से नहीं सोचे थे, the team is not able to, or there is some curfew or anything like that, the team is not able to attend the physical inventory count. So it says that if you are unable to attend the unforeseen due to unforeseen जो आपने पहले से नहीं सोचे थे, make or observe some physical counts on alternate day. मैनेजमेंट को बोलो देखो आज तो I am not able to come, तो on some alternate day ना please make arrangement so that some physical inventory count can be done. And जिस भी डेट पे आप जाते हो एंड 31 मार्च के जो भी इंटरवेनिंग ट्रांजैक्शंस है उसके ऊपर परफॉर्म ऑडिट प्रोसीजर, जैसे सेल्स और परचेज का आई गेव यू एग्जांपल फॉर द अर्लियर केस. ठीक है. नाउ इफ इट इज इम्प्रैक्टिकेबल, it is impracticable, वैसे तो this is a very rare case, but let's say the example that is given in essay is if the nature and location of inventory is such that the location where the inventory is kept, it poses threat to the safety of the auditor. Auditor की safety is at risk if he goes to conduct the audit, the physical inventory count there. Then perform alternate procedures. And if you are not able to perform alternate procedures का क्या मतलब है? See, inventory as on 31st March 2022 आपको verify करना था, and you are not able to do that. So out of this inventory, some sales would be made subsequently, and there must be some purchases here. So perform procedures here. If you are not, it is not possible, then consider the impact on the audit opinion, modify your opinion in terms of SA 705. है ना? अभी I am just telling you the provisions that are given in this essay. इसको लिंक हम करेंगे नेक्स्ट सेशन में. समझ आता है? इफ इन्वेंट्री इज केप्ट इन एनी वेयर हाउस, थर्ड पार्टी के पास रखी है, तो रिक्वेस्ट कंफर्मेशन, देखो एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन लेते हैं ना, तो आप एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन वेयर हाउस कीपर से भी तो ले सकते हो ना, फ्रॉम द थर्ड पार्टी विद रिस्पेक्ट टू क्वांटिटी, दैट इज कितना एग्जिस्ट करती है एंड द कंडीशन, and perform inspection or other audit procedures. If it is possible, send your team. Perform inspection मतलब अपनी ही टीम को भेज दो ना आप warehouse keeper के पास to attend the physical inventory count or other procedure. If it is not possible to send your team, you may take services of another chartered accountant, another auditor, है ना? So perform some procedures. ठीक है? Students, here one more point is there. It is saying that if it is impracticable to attend the physical inventory count, तो आप क्या करो, alternate procedures करो, तब भी नहीं होता तो modify कर दो. Then it says that general inconvenience कि भाई मेरे पास team नहीं है, मेरे पास time नहीं है, इसलिए I'm not doing. So this is not an excuse to omit such a relevant audit procedure. Because if you remember in inherent limitation of audit, when we did the second point, timeliness of financial reporting, remember? The benefit, cost and benefit wala point. We have seen there that general inconvenience, है ना, just a matter of time, difficulty or cost is not an excuse to omit any audit procedure. So auditor cannot take a plea that since I do not have the team, I cannot go to conduct the inventory, attend the physical inventory count. नहीं. If it is actually impracticable, तो पहले क्या बोला, alternate procedures तो करना ही है, नहीं हो पाता कुछ भी, is not possible, then modify the opinion. ठीक है? So this was about inventory. Just next 5-10 minutes. Now the second point is litigation and claim, and what auditor will design and perform audit procedure to identify that give litigation and claims that give rise to risk of material misstatement. It basically says that with respect to litigation and claims, in order to see whether there is completeness of litigation and claim, completeness assertion with respect to the selected item litigation and claim, क्या करना है? देखो सबसे पहले तो practically आप क्या करोगे? When you're checking the litigation and claims, litigation and claim का क्या मतलब है? Litigation is what? Some dispute is going on. Claim is what? The company may have to pay some compensation. है ना? So, see, अगर कोई litigation चल रहा है, what happened? Just अगर कोई litigation is going on, the company must have hired certain legal expert, external legal, कुछ advocates वगैरह hire किए होंगे ना, review the legal expense account. वहां पर पूरा डिटेल आ रहा है ना, लेट्स से 10 lakhs लीगल एक्सपेंस पे during the year the amount has been expended. Ask the management for a detail of this 10 lakh. That why, what are the cases for which payment has been made to the advocates. है ना? Then inquire the management or the in-house legal counsel. Management से inquire करो कि अच्छा बताओ ये 10 lakhs का payment क्या हुआ, इसको हुआ, अच्छा इसको per month, let's say to so and so advocates, per month 50,000 has been paid. Why such payment has been made per month? Now, why a 2 lakh payment has to make such and such? So make an inquiry to the management in-house legal counsel. And let's say if there is a meeting with the external legal counsel, so there must be some minutes of the meeting. So review the minutes of such meeting. If you remember when we did audit evidence, we saw that other information that authenticates the accounting record is also what? Audit evidence. So minutes of the meeting. Clear? Now, if auditor identifies that there is a risk of material misstatement with respect to litigation, that other material litigation has not is there, we are concerned about completeness of litigation here, na? So when auditor reviews all the, or he performs all these procedure, he finds that management has disclosed only 20 litigations, though there are 25 litigations. So now there is what? Risk of material misstatement. Management ने आपको पूरा information नहीं दिया. Perform other procedures and directly communicate with entities external legal counsel. जो भी advocates थे, जिसको hire किया, जिसको payments किया गया है, directly communicate with them. अब directly communicate करने के लिए, see, essay says, like essay has given certain requirements. See, you are a professional, they are also a professional. So meet them professionally. First, send a letter of inquiry to them. Letter of inquiry requesting the entity's external legal counsel to communicate directly to the auditor. कि भाई मेरे से directly communicate करो. And students, if you remember, there is a confidentiality clause with respect to our profession, that we should not share information of our client with any other person. Same way, it might be possible that the advocates are also having such confidentiality clause. If such is the case, perform alternate audit procedures. Obtain written representation from management, obtain certain other external confirmation. Okay? Now, there are certain situations where it is necessary to meet the entity's external legal counsel. It is necessary to meet the entity's external legal counsel when there is significant risk, fraud risk kuch hai, significant risk. Auditor finds when he is performing the procedure, he finds that there is a significant risk that needs special audit consideration. The matter is complex. है ना? In cases में तो पक्का से go and meet the external legal counsel. There is disagreement between the management and external legal counsel. Let's say when you're going through the minutes of the meetings, you found that there was a disagreement. But yes, again, do it professionally. Seek management permission, and there should be a representative of management in attendance. Clear? Further, this essay also says that you need to obtain what? Written representation from the management that all known actual possible litigation and claims have been disclosed to the auditor and appropriately accounted for and disclosed as per applicable FRM. Clear? Then it says that if management doesn't give you permission to meet the external legal counsel, the external legal counsel कह देता है कि I will not respond. Then again, perform alternate procedure. If you are not able to perform alternate procedure, modify your opinion in terms of essay 705. ठीक है? So is it clear? Students, quickly send in your replies. Inventory and litigation and claims, whether it is clear or not. I'll do one thing, segment information I'll take up in the next session. Okay? Because otherwise you'll get confused. And I've told you that next session is on Sunday, morning 7 to 9:30. 6th November, है ना? So don't miss it. And then it will be followed by a session on Monday, which is in evening, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. ठीक है? For chapter number 3. So don't get confused. Sunday को session morning में है, Monday को session evening में ही है. ठीक है? So with this, I'll end up the session for today because otherwise you'll get confused. And next session, as this session was also important, next session, in fact, both the sessions are going to be very, very important. Why? Because we'll be completing all the 9 essays, we'll be discussing the questions, and we'll try based on the time left to revise the entire chapter. Okay? So hoping that you have understood everything and expecting that you will go through the module in entirety till where we have read. I'll end the session for today. Thank you for giving me extra 30 minutes. Thank you so much and good night.